We are a peaceful people. Struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble. Just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here, and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere. Make no mistake, 'cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, the time when I eat. Though we may criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. We are a peaceful people. Struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble. Just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here, and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere. Make no mistake, 'cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, the time when I eat. Though we may criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. We are a peaceful people, struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble, just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no trees.
Honorable members, I declare this third sitting of the 7th Annual Youth Parliament of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana to be in session. I now ask the clerk to read the prayers.
Almighty God, we who are here gathered together do most humbly beseech Thee to guide us in all our consultations, so that we may together build a land where knowledge is free, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, and where words come from the depth of truth. Grant us, O God, Thine aid and guidance, so that we may deal justly with the several causes that come before us, laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and personal preferences, so that the result of our counsels may be to the glory of Thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion, the preservation of justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the President, and the peace and prosperity of Guyana. Grant us, O God, the vision so to lead, that all the people of this fair land may enter into that state of brotherhood and unity, where the mind is led forward by Thee into everlasting, widening thought and action. Amen.
Please be seated.
Announcements by the Speaker.
Honorable members, I just want to give recognition to our esteemed judges today. Honorable members of the National Assembly, Faisal Jafarali and Devin Sears, and former member Africo Selman.
Presentation of petitions, presentations of papers and reports, reports from committees, oral questions without notice, questions and notice, statements by ministers including policy statements, personal explanations, request for leave to move the adjournment of the Assembly on definite matters of urgent public importance, motions relating to the business or sitting of the Assembly and moved by a minister, introduction of bills, public business, government business motions.
Honorable members, the first motion stands in the name of the Honorable Prime Minister. Honorable Reginald Brown, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. From the great words of Dr. Noam Spencer, mental health is not a destination. It is a journey. It is about how you drive, not where you're going. Madam Speaker, honorable members, and members of the media, there's a problem harming our children and the rest of our nation Our society's social welfare is at stake. Madam Speaker, honorable members of the House, our children are the basis and foundation of our nation. They are the rock and pillars on which we stand. Don't you believe, Madam Speaker, that the House would collapse together when the House collapses? And when the rock and pillars crumble, the House will collapse. Isn't it true, Madam Speaker? Isn't it true, honorable members? The proposal for psychological evaluation for students and other citizens of Guyana is now being presented to you. Madam Speaker and honorable members. With that, Madam Speaker, I bring my first point of contention. What would you feel if you could think clearly? How would you feel if you could feel and act properly? How would you feel if you could effectively relate, deal with stress, or socialize? Honorable members, how would you feel if you had and couldn't do all these tasks and there was no help for you, no assistance or guidance whatsoever? How would you feel? Distinguished members, are you aware that that 1 in 4 people suffer from mental illness? Did you also know that women, the unemployed, and young adults account for over 60% of cases? According to an article by Kaitro News, less than 10% of those affected are receiving treatment. 10%. And 40% have attempted suicide. Members, I think we can all agree that when it comes to suicide, that is one too many. As more than 200,000 Guyanese suffer from mental disease. Are you aware, Madam Speaker, that this number equates to about 25% of our priceless population? Because we can plainly see the impact of mental health in this case. So let's unite and support this motion. 1 in every 5 children has had a disabling mental illness, according to the National Institute of Mental Health. Now, Madam Speaker, as I previously stated, our children are our pillar and cornerstone. They are also our future. So this is unacceptable. Poor mental health has been shown to have a significant negative effect on productivity as well as communication and working relationships. The most frequent case of poor mental health, Madam Speaker, are trauma and history of abuse. However, there are other factors as well. Members, it is intolerable that there are kids who have been abused in the past. This is a key justification for supporting this motion. My first method of resolving be that this youth parliament supports the development of implementation of a policy that exposes employees to psychological evaluation every 6 months. This will help to promote a healthier work environment as well as healthier employees. Am I right, members? Most honorable members, Madam Speaker, I hereby invite you to join forces and unite to implement laws as this be the reason that we meet here in this chamber today with all procedures followed. I state my second resolution making strategy for this youth parliament to support the government's implementation of mental health programs in schools. From the shooting at Washington High School on February 20th, 2002, to the Oxford High School shooting on November 30th, 2021, we have witnessed the impact that mental health has on other countries, including the United States and their educational system. By taking action, we can prevent large-scale school violences from entering Guyana's borders.
Honorable Prime Minister, you have 1 minute remaining.
Noted, Madam Speaker. Thank you. I now read to you my last course of action. This youth parliament supports funding resources to provide enhanced mental health care. This will help the previously mentioned 25% and more. If you suspect you have mental disorders, if you have mental disorders, there will be guidance. These persons will benefit from effective guidance. What have I said here today, Madam Speaker? Is that Guyana, we have a serious mental issue. It affects our children. And this motion can help to solve those issues and make Guyana even better than it already is. I would want to thank all members of this House, Madam Speaker, and all residents of this magnificent country that I am honored to serve. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister. Honorable members, I'd like to make a correction to my announcement. I just want to give recognition to our esteemed judges today, honorable members of the National Assembly, Devin Sears, and former member Nicole Miller, former youth parliamentarian, and Africo Selman. Honorable Davina Singh, Shadow Minister of Human Services.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. When solving problems, we must dig at the root. We must dig at the
Excuse
root.
me, honorable member. Please hold. Honorable members, I just want to give recognition to our esteemed judges today. Honorable member of the National Assembly, and Devin Sears, and former member Africo Selman, and Miracle Miller, former youth parliamentarian and best speaker. Thank you. Honorable Davina Singh, Shadow Minister of Human Services and Social Security.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. When solving problems, dig at the roots instead of just hacking at the leaves. Anthony D'Angelo. To solve the mental health crisis in Guyana, the government seeks to establish free psychological evaluations at all organizations in Guyana every 6 months. A psychological evaluation assesses behavior, personality, and cognitive abilities to identify mental health issues. Madam Speaker, frankly, the implementation of mandatory psychological evaluations is a short-term and short-sighted, not to mention impractical, solution to a long-term and long-standing problem. And for us to solve the increasing rates of mental disorders and suicide in Guyana, we must dig at the roots. National Suicide Prevention Plan lists the roots of Guyana's high suicide rate as stigma, domestic violence, and insufficient mental health resources. Stigma shows itself in stereotypes, which can affect job prospects and even the quality of healthcare that mentally ill people receive. Stigma against mental illness is not limited to the common man. It can be exhibited by people who work with mentally ill people daily. Mental health professionals, the police, policymakers, and administrators alike. There are 3 full-time psychiatrists in the public sector in Guyana, 2 based in Georgetown and 1 at the National Psychiatric Hospital. or the Burmese madhouse, as it is more commonly known. Madam Speaker, the fact that the NPH is more commonly known as the Burmese madhouse, a derogatory nickname, shows that the stigma our people carry runs too deep for them to be receptive to psychological evaluations alone. To persuade those who are suffering in silence to accept help, the existence of mental illness must first be normalized. Awareness must be spread. Mental illness are just another branch of illness. The battle against depression is akin to the battle against cancer. Madam Speaker, with such a dark history and affinity for stigma, how can we be assured that persons will not lie during their psychological evaluations? More so, what assurance do Guyanese citizens have that they will receive the help they need, that society will not shun them, that they will not be denied job prospects because of their mental illness? Therein brings our solution. Before the conduction of mandatory psychological evaluations, a destigmatization campaign should be enforced. Destigmatization, through broadcasting and regular media coverage of mental health, will make citizens familiar with mental illnesses and disorders. It will get them accustomed to being more conscious of their mental health and seek assistance when necessary. After these psychological evaluations, what happens next? Psychological evaluations alone would not do much to remedy the mental issues in this country, to truly make a difference in the future of mental health in Guyana. We must dig at the roots. Domestic violence is a dominating root cause of mental health issues in Guyana, widespread and existent through all social classes, races, and regions. It would be an oversight not to account for its victims when planning countrywide psychological evaluations. The magistrate court and the police force have a responsibility to treat every sign and report of domestic violence seriously. There must be a pre-existing safety net for victims to fall back on should their abusers obstruct their responses or prevent them from receiving help offered after being evaluated. On the note of help offered, Guyana's current mental health care system, while steadily improving, is fragmented and poorly resourced. As
Honorable member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As aforementioned, there are only 3 full-time psychiatrists in the public sector in Guyana. Our current mental health care system is in no shape to treat the mass bulk of patients that will likely surface after these 6-monthly psychological evaluations. Guyana should therefore use countries ranked high in mental wellness as examples, since their systems have proven to be effective. Germany, for instance, provides an extensive support network and programs to help integrate people with mental illnesses into society. We should educate and train human resources in clinical psychology to procure a network of workers to diagnose and treat mentally ill people. Treatment for mental illness can include psychotherapy, medication, support groups, or a self-help plan. Stigma, violence, insufficient mental health resources. These are all the roots of the mental health crisis within Guyana, and they must be dug out before we can begin mandatory psychological evaluations effectively. We must dig at the roots instead of just...
Honorable member, your time is up.
Okay, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I move that the Honorable Minister be given 1 minute to conclude her speech.
Please continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We must dig at the roots instead of just hacking at the leaves. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Elissa Ishmael, Shadow Minister of the Public Service, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mental illness is an alarming issue in Guyana, and our relevant bodies have failed to do the much-needed work to address this rapid growth of mental illnesses among our Guyanese citizens. According to the European Neuropharmacology, good mental health is a state of well-being that allows an individual to cope with normal life stresses and function productively. Based on the motion...
Honorable Member, I'm sorry, but I've skipped an honorable member. Please stop. Honorable Renuka Dindayal, Minister of Human Services and Social Security.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In the world of Lisa Olivia, just because no one else can do it or heal you, your inner work doesn't mean you should or need to. Madam Speaker, members of the opposition, members of the government, members of the media, with this quote, as the Minister of Human Service and Social Security, I stand firmly today to raise my voice on a persistent issue that has been threatening the safety of our Guyanese citizens for so long. Madam Speaker, nearly 80% of Guyanese teenagers, according to a 2010 research by the Pan-American Health Organization, had their first drink before turning 14. And some kids even tried alcohol for the first time in elementary school. Furthermore, despite the fact that connection between alcohol and suicide is largely unexplored, studies indicate that alcohol use disorder is probably a factor in both suicidal ideation and attempts. Since 2009, a mother has been battling with her mentally ill kid who had a potential future, but she had grown him mentally ill kid who had a potential future, but she had grown this enchantment with the system. According to Stabrook News on July 7, 2013, he was in his late 20s and had a nice career until one day he wasn't feeling himself and walked off. She tried to help him, but finding him another job, but he continued walking. So she kept looking for assistance. How do you feel after trying with your mentally ill son? Although there were solutions were cleared, they were out of reach. As members of Parliament, isn't it our job to ensure citizens have access to health care and resources? Members of Parliament, published by Kaicher News, a pleading civilian said, the hands-on approach by Minister of Public Health to improve the health sector is welcomed by the most Guyanese. It is a very timely vision, but the ministry should pay more attention to people with mental illnesses. Health experts should be treated private at a hospital or health clinic. Settings in order to prevent the stigmatization that the issue has attracted, especially with population as homeless. Are we just to ignore the pleas of our people who we took an oath to protect? The opposition, as well as society, must break this brutal cycle of stigmatization against people with mental health. It should move away from treatment at the mental health institution and towards community health center. With proper treatment, people suffering from mental health illnesses can live a productive life and be a vital part of life. Consider a young man with a disorder who feels paranoid and fearful around people, has little work history, and expresses a desire to work with animals, members of a treatment, teamwork, with pet stores, veterinarian clinics, and farms. They locate several possible jobs, and within a week, the clients start working 5 hours a week. The employment specialists make sure the client can do all the aspects of the job and check in with the employer by phone. The job goes well, and within 2 months, the client is working
Honorable member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The job goes well, and within 2 minutes, the client is working 20 hours, feels confident about job, and is making friends at the clinic. Working steadily confers other benefits such as greater income, enhancement, self-esteem, improvement in quality life, and reduction in mental health services. Long-term follow-up show that work outcomes improve despite minimal vocational services after this year. The bottom line, a national program emphasizes evidence-based support on employment and treatment is predicted to save all small amounts of money. But the point of the program is not to improve the quality of life, is to improve the quality of life for hundreds, maybe even thousands who are faced with mental illnesses. Numerous factors contribute to mental health problems. The most common factors are trauma and history of abuse, for example, child abuse, sexual abuse, assault, witnessing violence.
Honorable member, your time is up.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I move that the Honorable Minister be given a 1-minute extension. Thank you very
Proceed,
much.
please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. After a while of passing built up, it can cause impulsive action done by individuals that may harm themselves or others. Mental health affects the individuals of society in many ways. In persons who seek and obtain treatment is available, can live in an overall better and happy life being contributed to development of the society we live in. In conclusion, I support the motion. We should implement psychological evaluation for students and other citizens of Guyana. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Lisa Ishmael, Shadow Minister of the Public Service. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mental health is an alarming issue in Guyana, and our relevant bodies have failed to do the much-needed work to address these issues among our Guyanese citizens. According to the European Union of Pharmacology, good mental health is a state of well-being that allows an individual to cope with normal life stresses and function productively. Based on the motion, psychological evaluation for students and other citizens of Guyana. I humbly stand here, Madam Speaker, as the Shadow Minister of Public Service to highlight citizens' daily challenges that affect their mental health, which then weakens the future foundation of our nation to thrive. I will also be showing the government that it is these issues that must first be tackled before even beginning to think of conducting psychological evaluations at every organization. Madam Speaker, I will first begin to explain how time pressures affect mental health. Time pressures is a psychological stress that occurs when a person has less time available than necessary to complete a task and obtain a result. One of the studies done by BMC Medical indicates that parents with long work hours and long work weeks that have children living at home experience a greater extent more mental breakdowns than people with no children. Among children of parents experiencing time pressures, 18.6% had mental health problems compared to 10.1% among children of parents not experiencing time pressures. The highest prevalence of mental health problems in the case of parental time pressures has found among girls 13 to 16 years old, 23.6%. A neglected population of children does not translate a bright economic future for any nation. This information shows just how much time pressures affect both children and parents' mental health. Given what we have just heard, Madam Speaker, how exactly is psychological evaluations going to benefit these children and parents whose mental health is being affected? So, Madam Speaker, to alleviate such time pressures of long work days and long work weeks, I ask, can a 4-day work week be a better solution instead of conducting the psychological evaluation? New research by Hensley Business School reports that companies that adopt a 4-day work week has found that over 3/4 of their staff were happier, less stressed, and took fewer days off. Moving to a 4-day work week has already saved the UK an estimate of $92 billion annually. Almost two-thirds of employers said that providing a 4-day working week has helped them to attract and retain talent. 4-day work weeks have been shown to decrease stress and improve mental health. And since stress has been proven to increase risk of disease and decrease life expectancy, a 4-day work week seems like a logical step for humanity. But exactly what would a psychological evaluation do? It would merely diagnose a person who has a mental health issues. It is not a solution. Madam Speaker, I, however, have presented to you one of the reasons for deteriorating mental health and also
Honorable member, you have 1 minute remaining.
and also provided a practical solution which I dare say the government has failed to do. Madam Speaker, to just do evaluation and implement programs without having at the table the first-hand challenges faced by Guyanese daily, it is like prescribing drugs to patients without knowing their illness. Regime changes are needed. I hope the government is starting to get the picture. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, mental health illnesses have been proven to show that all of the various age ranges can be affected. The government has proposed that they will be implementing mental health programs in schools. However, these same programs can be implemented in each community countrywide. Even the government's motion poses that one in 4 people with women, unemployed, and young adults accounting for 60% suffer from mental illnesses. This shows that mental health affects persons from all ranges, not just students. Therefore, these programs should be implemented for the benefit of all citizens, not just students. Madam Speaker, the government needs to take a second
Honorable
look at-
member, your time is up.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I move that the Honorable Minister be given 1 minute to conclude her speech.
Proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the government needs to take a second look at this motion. I'm sure if they carefully examine this draft, they would be able to see that psychological evaluations are not sufficient in fighting against mental health. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Marcy Augustus, Minister of Public Service, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There is no health without mental health. Mental health is too important to be left to the professionals alone. Mental health is everyone's business. Vikram Patel. Madam Speaker, members of the opposition, fellow members of the government, and of course the social media, good morning. I stand before you in presenting the motion, psychological evaluation for students and other citizens of Guyana. In order to have a very productive nation, I will offer remedies that should be implemented to stop these mental health concerns that are present among our kids and inhabitants of Guyana, especially among our youths. Mental health is a problem that needs to be investigated. Madam Speaker, physical testing would be extremely important within the educational system because it would help us to comprehend children's mental health issues and it would help assist adults in being better caregivers so that parents, educators, and everyone else can respect and lessen the high level of discrimination experienced by people with mental health issues. However, the school system would not require this evaluation. The earlier we can implement a program within our education system, the better it will be for us in the future, reducing illiteracy and discrimination to persons with mental health, possibly allowing them to get a job. This program would be educated on what mental health is and would know what the primary level and onward would be educated on what mental health is and would know what and who they should speak to in case they are going through stress or anything else. By doing this, there will be productive people later in life. Having knowledge of dealing with mental health issues, therefore passing on the knowledge to others. The government of Guyana can plan how to tackle mental health issues in school so learners with mental health problems will be included. Madam Speaker, a program should be put in place to address these difficulties. According to a study carried out by UNICEF on September 28, 2020, which found that adolescents are the group most affected by mental health problems. This made it quite evident that majority of students deal with mental health concerns, which can have an impact on their interaction and academic performance. And what will be the results? Delinquents will then look for alternative means of support, which will increase the unemployment rate. We at the Ministry of Public Service are here to assist people, to educate public employees, and to keep them up to date on the demands of the contemporary world. The public employees, majority of parents have no concept on what mental health is. To them, it's simply a stylish word. By evaluating adults, we can learn the ratio to the illiterate parents and simply define what strategy we can take to aid both parents and pupils. Therefore, in order to implement our approach, we must educate the parents. Additionally, we shouldn't dismiss or delegate responsibility for mental health to families. Rather, we should work to make resources and facilities available so that mental health initiatives may be implemented. We need to educate people about mental health and the purpose of it be implemented. We need to educate people about mental health and the purpose of psychological evaluation by emphasizing to them that mental health is not something to be ashamed of and that everyone is a human being with feeling and the capacity to make mistakes. Despite
Honorable member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Despite the fact that some parents may object to have their child being assessed or the students being afraid to speak out is a problem, when they are of mature age, they won't be embarrassed to seek psychological counseling. We in the government, Madam Speaker, firmly believe that programs should be implemented in the educational system. We don't want people with unanswered questions in their lives. We don't want that at all. We want active citizens who will meaningfully contribute to the growth of Guyana. Let me use a quote from Dr. Howard Wilson. A country that plays with the destiny of its children will be the country that destroys itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Mohammed Baksh, Shadow Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the government is preposterously proposing psychological evaluation for all students and other citizens of Guyana. Guyana is no stranger to problems with mental health. In reality, 20% of the population experiences mental health concerns, according to an iNews article. As was also stated in that article, an investment in mental health is critical. A psychological evaluation for our entire country may appear to be a critical investment. However, this is not the case. Allow me to elaborate, Madam Speaker. To begin with, a psychological evaluation on the population is simply going to take a very long time due to the amount of psychologists we have. Might I remind the Honorable Minister of Health that according to Ms. Priya Manikchan, Guyana has over 246,000 children in the school system and twice that number of older citizens. How can we practically do a mental evaluation of such a volume of people? Additionally, what would be the medical mechanism used? Would it be a questionnaire distributed to children and citizens? Because it is evident that Guyana has less than 10 psychologists to do personal interviews for everyone. Even so, this would require much time in scheduling and willingness on the part of the citizens and students. According to Canvas Health, a psychological evaluation can require a minimum of 2 to 8 hours per person. Imagine the time it will take for every student and citizen across Guyana to complete theirs. Did the Honorable Minister of Health even do the math? Or is he suffering from a neurological dysfunction impairing his ability to comprehend basic mathematics skills? Madam Speaker,
Might I remind you, Honorable Mohammed Bash, you are to refer to any honorable member as honorable member or comrade, according to the according to Chapter 6 on the standing orders. Thank you very much.
Can you please repeat what you said? I didn't hear you.
Honorable members, please.
Might I remind you, honorable member, that you are to refer to any member as honorable member or comrade, according to Chapter 6 in the standing order, and not he. Thank you.
My apologies.
Proceed.
So from a neural, Madam Speaker, let me do the calculation. Let's say there are 500,000 citizens plus 246,000 students minimum. Multiply this by the minimum 2 hours, which is 1.5 million hours of therapy, which would take a year if we had 515 psychiatric evaluators working 8 hours a day. Sadly, we have less than 10 persons qualified to do this type of evaluation. Yes, mental health is important, but is it practical to evaluate the entire population? Madam Speaker, this poorly thought out initiative would make our nation a laughing stock to the entire world should the government use their majority to force it through. The Honorable Minister describes our nation as one where all need mental health. I would suggest that just as charity begins at home, the Honorable Minister starts with himself. Imagine, you're the president of a country and Guyana reaches out to you for support. But Guyana has a lot of mental cases. Would you want to collaborate with Guyana? The impression we are giving to countries is that our people are psychologically and mentally challenged and that it must go as far to evaluate them all. Madam Speaker, are the ministers of government going to line up to be assessed to? Because it seems like they should be first in line for bringing up such a ridiculous motion to this House. Secondly, psychological evaluation leaves no room.
Madam Speaker, I stand on a point of order, 24.6. No member shall impute improper motives to any member of the Assembly.
Honorable member, please repeat your question on the standing order.
It shall be out of order to use offensive and insulting language about members of the Assembly.
Honorable member, Honorable Mohammed Baksh, you may proceed. That is irrelevant. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Psychological evaluation leaves no room for privacy. Guyanese should have the right to privacy. If we use a questionnaire, there's a paper trail or record of the person's answers. Who is going to secure the solutions or the database? What are we going to do with the data gathered? Will it be confidential so as to not invade others' privacy? There is no practical way for this to be done, so data is protected. Papers can fall into the wrong hands. Imagine the consequences of someone finding out that persons they know have mental problems. Stigmatization occurs, ridicule, career hampering. People can use this information against each other in arguments for their benefit. It cannot be done online to fix this problem either, because not everyone has access to technology in Guyana because of the urban and rural setting. Madam Speaker, the Honorable Minister of Health seems to be challenged to the demise by the sheer enormity of what he is doing, so much so that he has no way to rise to that challenge. Madam Speaker, I conclude by saying that the road to hell is paved with good intention, and so is the mental asylum too. We should not be chasing after everyone without good reason. We can instead look for warning signs and then act on same, rather than putting all our eggs in one basket and wasting everyone's time. I suggest we all tread very carefully along these pathways for fear of doing more harm than good. I urge all members to vote against this proposition and let your conscience be your guide. Do not deprive the people of the freedom to choose what they believe is suitable for them. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Carlos Branford, Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Clerk, Deputy Clerk, Lord Opposition, colleagues of the government side, attentive audience, all pleasant morning to you. Today I rise to further support the motion which states that psychological evaluation should be provided for students and other citizens of Guyana. People who have mental health and psychosocial disabilities deserve to live with the dignity that is integral to a healthy and fulfilling life. These are the wise words of former United Nations General Secretary Mr. Ban Ki-moon. The Mental Health Care Act of 2017 talks about the right of patients with mental illness and lays down the ethical and legal responsibilities of mental health professionals and the government. Rights of the patients with mental illness are on par with the fundamental rights of human beings and need to be clearly talked about as they belong to a vulnerable group for the evaluation, treatment, and research perspective. In the Mental Health Act here, 2017, the author critically evaluated the pros and cons of the new act. They commended the act for endorsing the rights, especially insurance of patients with a mental illness. The caregivers of patients with mental illness are the real ambassadors for mental health. Human rights of patients with mental illness have to be more protected at all times. However, it cannot be one-sided. There is an equal and strong need to involve the caregivers in framing mental health policies that are ethically and legally sound at the same time, tailoring to their needs and ground realities to developing countries such as poverty, illiteracy, unawareness regarding to mental illness, stigma, discrimination, etc. In India, there is an increased focus on training of judiciary and prison medical officer, which is a great initiative to follow. It is heartening to know that an article dealing with this is important, albeit unaddressed issue is published. Disability in mental illness is a state where the patient has shown symptomatic recovery with the available treatment modalities, however, has deficit that lead of significant problems with self-care, interpersonal, social, and occupational functioning, and impaired quality of life that may lead to rehabilitation. Every patient with mental illness is a potential medico-legal case, unless proved otherwise. However, we need not to be fearful but cautious. While, unless proved otherwise, evaluating and treating patients with mental illness and be aware of legal angles, which ultimately boils down to the technical aspect. In conclusion, I firmly believe that when these implementations are to be established, we will see the significant change in the mental development of our citizens.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Quincy Andrews, Shadow Minister of Home Affairs, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. While the motion may be considered an honorable and timely one, it begs the question as to whether psychological evaluation are sufficient to address the growing number of mental health issues in our country. In a World Health Organization brief dated March the 2nd, 2022, it was found that mental health conditions are increasing worldwide. This is why psychological evaluations alone are insufficient to combat mental health issues in Guyana. We diagnose and then what, Madam Speaker? This is why the government needs to put systems in place to adequately help our citizens who are troubled with mental health issues. The government's first whereas clause states, mental health is a growing issue among citizens of varying age groups and affects how persons think, feel, and act, and how persons handle stress, relate to others, and make healthy choices. Madam Speaker, in Guyana, treatment for mental health is often rejected because of the stigma attached to it. Currently, we have one national psychiatric hospital, and in most cases, persons are unwilling to seek help unless they are being forced. This is not a situation that is confined to adults. Mental health is a growing issue that is affecting even our children. Added to that is the fact that the lone psychiatric hospital has over 90% of patients who do not belong there. This is according to Director General of the Ministry of Health, Dr. Vishwa Mahadiu, in the 2021 report. Many of these patients are left there by their family members because of the stigma attached to requiring psychiatric treatment. Madam Speaker, the third whereas clause provided that although many persons are diagnosed with mental health issues, a very small percentage are being treated. This grave situation shows that we must put systems in place that actually help students and other citizens of this dear country of ours, rather than just diagnosing them and leaving them to figure life out on their own. I propose that the government considers establishing treatment facilities throughout the country. These treatment facilities can be in the form of halfway houses, where citizens are giving the semblance of a normal life while being treated for their respective mental health issues. In a study conducted in the United States, where halfway houses are prevalent, the Nolan Center for Justice found that these halfway houses can be extremely beneficial when used properly. What the houses do, Madam Speaker, is that they allow for the gradual reintroduction into society. As such, the stigma attached to persons with mental health issues will be gradually reduced, and more persons will be more open to seeking treatment for mental health. A further point to note is that in Guyana, many people attempt suicide because they are troubled with some sort of mental health issue. For the person who was unsuccessful in his suicide attempt, the judicial system steps in, and that person is required to pay a fine in Guyana. Furthermore, the Criminal Offences Act of Guyana provides that everyone who attempts suicide shall be guilty of a misdemeanor and liable to imprisonment for 2 years. So, members of this honorable house, a person who attempts suicide because of a mental health issue is punished twice. Twice I ask, does imprisonment solve anything? This, Madam Speaker, compounds the mental health problems being faced by that individual. As such, we propose an amendment to our policies and further an amendment to the government's draft on this motion. We need not only to diagnose by using psychological evaluations, but we must...
Honorable member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Noted, Madam Speaker. We need not only to diagnose by using psychological evaluations, but we must treat these issues. Madam Speaker, we submit today that psychological evaluations are not enough to help people, and more must be done. It is important that this honorable house recognize that evaluations are not enough because diagnosis and treatment ought to go hand in hand. Finally, Madam Speaker, establishing treatment facilities in every region will go a long way towards addressing mental health issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Renisa Golden, Minister of Home Affairs, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to make my contribution to support the motion, psychological evaluation for students and other citizens of Guyana. Psychological evaluation or psychological testing, according to Rodlin 2022, is a detailed procedure of assessment and screening done by a psychologist, a licensed psychologist, not a psychologist in training. It is crucial to make sure that health mechanisms are in place that take into account the mental health conditions of its population. If a nation is to successfully assess or identify the psychological status of its citizens, these include in order of priority the development and implementation of proper instrumentation that would allow trained personnel to precisely evaluate a person's mental health status, followed by the provision of trained and qualified staff to conduct testing. People who exhibit issues with mood, behavior, or learning should, and I repeat, should receive a psychological evaluation. The third crucial element is a secure environment for the evaluation, one that respects transparency and dependability. Stress, drug use disorder, attention deficit or hyperactive disorder, or some of you may know as ADHD and intellectual handicap are just a few of the conditions that can affect memory, mental processes, and behaviors. A psychological evaluation can help identify these conditions. A psychological evaluation is essential for determining the following, among other things: the intensity of depressive or anxiety symptoms, the fundamental cause of emotional disorder, various coping techniques, your particular strengths and limitations, your emotional capacity, and the presence of learning disability. It is highly technical and intricate matter that must be carried out by skilled experts. As a result, training must be prioritized. A comprehensive re-education program is required, with training supplied to every teacher, healthcare worker, and specialist, whether they be counselors or psychologists, especially at schools where large number of pupils are silently drowned in the wells of social, family, and personal concerns that are severely hurting their mental health and require expert psychological diagnosis and assistance. As a result, every teacher must have counseling level training in order to support and establish a healthy environment in which kids can develop healthy and desired emotional and psychological behavioral patterns. While this proposal is good, the question is it a realistic one? And is it something that Guyana should be working on? The answer is yes. Every society, including Guyana, should strive towards it. We are dealing with situations where other forces are at play and are eroding the mental health of our country. Despite the fact that we take our mental health condition for granted, this includes drug dealers and the widespread inebriation among our educators, students, and law enforcement officials, which endangers the mental health and emotional health of the nation as a whole. This is not a straightforward problem. Thus, I don't think we should take a one-dimensional or simplified approach to it in this form. Instead, we might consider...
Honorable member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Consider talking about the dangers that society faces: drug abuse, substance abuse, among others. Therefore, the intervention's focus is on how to carry out the appropriate interventions to support people who are struggling with various addictions. Notably, I don't think the issue we should be focusing on is conducting assessment or institutionalizing people with mental health disorder. Rather, I believe the issue is conducting evaluation to ascertain where we are and then developing strategies we can put into place to make the society a healthier society, psychologically and emotionally. Madam Speaker, I humbly suggest the following. The reorganization of educational system will guarantee that all instructors receive some kind of formal training that will enable them to identify and address mental health issues. That similar training is offered to nurses. Across the nation, a routine check should be required. Every single employee has a psychological assessment as part of the evaluation process once a year to gauge their psychological stability. We must closely monitor the workloads assigned to personnel because stress is a huge hindrance to the mind and body. It is critical that we as a nation develop ways to teach our population how to deal with stress.
Honorable member, your time is up.
Madam Speaker, I move that the honorable member gets 1 minute extension, please. Thank you.
Continue.
I'll leave this with you. Psychological assessment is not just for some people in society. It is necessary for all of us to be placed in a position where we can continuously monitor ourselves and be in a place to state that we are truly in a position children to produce a healthy society. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Odasa Johnny, Shadow Minister of Health, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We live in a time and place when mental standards in our society continue to deteriorate. And our society seems to be falling into a decadent state. A sad situation indeed. And even as we speak, Madam Speaker, this situation worsens. We have taken careful note of the fallen standards of our society. This is why I and my fellow members of the opposition stand here to scrutinize the government motion on mental health. While we understand that implementing psychological evaluation in various organizations is a good initiative, it is just the tip of the iceberg to a much bigger problem. We do not believe that psychological evaluation alone can solve our mental health problems. Madam Speaker, as the Honorable Shadow Minister of Human Services and Security highlighted, psychological evaluation can only assess an individual's behaviors. It is not the only thing that persons suffering from mental illness needs. That persons may need to be treated further after the evaluation is done. In this regard, the government failed to know focus on the treatment that can happen after a psychological evaluation is done. If attention is paid solely on psychological evaluation, how does the government expect citizens to get treated? Madam Speaker, an article from Stabrook News noted that some of the public hospitals in Guyana have a shortage of some of the most essential drugs. It was reported that Guyanese are tired of going to public hospitals to be handed prescriptions to purchase essential medicines and supplies they need from private pharmacies, because the government clinic or hospital does not have these drugs. Madam Speaker, if we do not even have the necessary drugs to help our citizens get treatment after being diagnosed with a mental health issue, what exactly is the point of conducting a psychological evaluation? The lack of relevant resources, particularly in outlying communities, still remain one of the largest barriers to addressing mental health illness. Often persons living within mental illness are encouraged to seek support, but the system we have in place tends to fall extremely short of what is needed by those who require aid. The Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation has been providing mental health support through the unit dedicated for that for a while. The effort is undoubtedly good and has potential to help a lot of persons, particularly those who do not have access to private service. But as is the case with most public institutions, it is heavily underfunded and not in line with the standards of treatment that are required to promote healthy mental care. Madam Speaker, very few psychiatrists can successfully aid in bringing about positive mental health in patients. This is just one of the many things that need to really prioritize mental health care in Guyana. For instance, while there have been a great number of
Honorable Member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Within Guyana, while there have been a great number of psychologists within Guyana, many of these persons interfere without critically analyzing and addressing the harmful beliefs that might possess regarding gender, race, sexuality, and poverty, and how these all can intersect with mental health illnesses. So often when persons seek private psychologist help and they do not fit into the psychologist's ideals, they can go away from sessions feeling even more mentally figured and hopeless. The government can look at countries such as Canada, Finland, Germany, and Sweden, which are traveling regarding mental health. One of the strategies that Canada is implement program, not only for students, but other citizens. They realize that mental health does not only affect students, but other citizens too.
Honorable member, your time is up. Thank you, honorable member. Honorable Brandon Henry, Shadow Minister of Local Government and Regional Development. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The vagrant seem having a conversation with seemingly no one. The anxious mother, the angry father, the impatient teacher, the troubled child. It's not just how they stay. But if we look carefully, if we pay attention, we will see the effects of poor mental health in Guyana. It's not surprising that many Guyanese struggle with mental health challenges. The World Health Organization has consistently ranked Guyana within the top 5 countries in the world with the highest suicide rates. In 2019, Guyana was ranked 2nd in the world. Why is it that in Guyana, mental health services are barely functional, even with one of the highest suicide rates in the world? Mental illness is one of the largest contributors towards Guyana's high suicide rate. The strain brought on by the pandemic has exacerbated the mental health issues among our population. While civil society and government have implemented various initiatives focusing on mental health, these efforts largely remain inaccessible and often insufficient for many. A basic understanding of mental health challenges and the lack of relevant support needed to manage or overcome them have resulted in many remaining unequipped to deal with the impacts of their illness. We have very few therapists in Guyana, and these professionals are largely centralized within Region 4. However, the long wait time hampers the effectiveness and timely access to this much-needed service. The World Health Organization provided clear guidelines of how to treat people with mental illness, but responsibility for action lies with the government. Your failure to act shows a lack of commitment. Pepperpot News magazine spoke with Shane Tull, a Guyanese clinical psychotherapist who revealed that to deal with Guyana's poor mental health practices, there needs to be treatment facilities set up that address mental health. He also noted that training of various personnel dealing with poor mental health practices is crucially important with mental health cases that need to be addressed through comprehensive strategies for promotion, prevention, treatment, and recovery. Madam Speaker, this means that while the members of the government attempt to increase services provided through facilities and personnel, be sure to decentralize too. This is further corroborated by the Caribbean Health Agency, CARPHA, which noted, among other things, that achieving mental health care as a reality for all calls for a whole society approach. Civil society and faith-based organizations to promote mental well-being and prevent mental and substance-related disorders. The government is urged to ensure equitable access to mental health services for all who need it. Civil society organizations are encouraged to support for public education and awareness about mental illness, and the private sector can provide support for mental health services in employment packages that ensure the workplace policies do not discriminate against persons with mental illness. With proper treatment, people suffering from mental illness can live productive lives and be a vital part of the community. However, in Guyana, less than 1% of the total health budget is allocated to treat mental illness. Mic check? Nah, you heard me correctly. Less than 1%. As a reminder, there were some sobering statistics revealed recently by the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security. Of 147 suicide cases, 120 were men. 19 of those were aged 5 to 19 years, while 109 were between 20 and 60 years. Regions 3, 4, and 6 accounted for the largest numbers of these deaths. Worrisome also is the fact that during the first half of 2021, 30 children attempted suicide.
Honorable
25
member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. With 25 being girls. Madam Speaker, how many more deaths will it take for the government to take Guyana's mental health issues seriously? It is appalling that the government thinks that psychological evaluations alone can decrease these numbers. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable member. Honorable Reginald Brown, Prime Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The opposition has put forward that psychological evaluation is not important. Madam Speaker, my honorable friends on the opposite side needs to understand that before you can treat any health-related problem, a proper evaluation, must I repeat, a proper evaluation is needed in the first instance. So I urge you to listen carefully and learn the right sequence when it comes to mental care. Also note that a psychiatrist is not needed to do a psychological evaluation. We can have other qualified healthcare professionals capable of doing so. We have general practitioners that can do an evaluation. Nurses can do an evaluation. The government has trained people. Let us put that training to use. I wash my hands, and as the famous Guyanese quote says, "Me rest my case." Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, honorable member. The motion is proposed. That concludes the debate on the motion. I now put a question. Those in favor say aye. Aye! Those against say no. No! Division, Mr. Clerk. Division, Mr. Clerk.
Elisa Ishmael.
No.
Aaron St. Hill.
No!
Davina Singh.
No.
Indrani Prasad.
No.
Brandon Henry.
No!
Sarah Jeffrey.
No.
Alyssa Isaacs.
No.
Shekinah London.
No.
Phoebe Croker.
No.
Farhan Elmodine.
No!
Quincy Andrews.
N-O, no.
Lorraine Lewis.
No.
Adasa Johnny.
No.
Inisha Frank.
No.
Aruni Seeley.
No.
Ariana Roberts.
No.
Crystal Welch.
No.
Mohammed Baksh.
No!
Athia Alikok.
No.
Tisian Jones.
Yes.
Marcy Augustus.
Yes.
Kelroy Williams,
Yes.
Renuka Dindia,
Yes.
Naomi Reddy,
Yes.
Alyssa Prasad,
Yes.
Zalika Campbell,
Yes.
Rebecca Ganesh,
Yes.
Abner Gomes, Michelle Lodd,
Yes.
Shaquan Morrison,
Yes.
Renisa Golding,
Yes.
Terry Ann Wright,
Yes.
Darian Lucas,
Yes.
Michaela Hamer,
Yes.
Samuel Peters,
Yes.
Luvani Evans,
Yes.
Mark Gadraj,
Yes.
Carlos Branford,
Yes.
Reginald Brown.
I stands for yes.
Let me just put like a, so we have 19. And we have, so then I say, Madam Speaker, 19 members voted, 20 members voted in favor of the motion, 19 members voted against the motion, and 0 members abstained.
Honorable members, the motion is carried. Mr. Clerk,
Private members' business, motions.
honorable members, the private members' motion on the order paper stands in the name of the Honorable Shadow Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport. Honorable Member, Mr. Aaron St. Hill, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members of this honorable House, good afternoon. Today, I acknowledge the pioneering athletes, persevering youths, as I humbly rise to move a motion that seeks to develop sports with efforts to promote tourism in Guyana. Madam Speaker, I quote, "Sport is a universal language. At its best, it can bring people together, no matter their origin, background, religious beliefs, or even economic status." Commonwealth sport correspondent Alicia Lewis. According to the Organization of American States, this very sector has been rapidly developing in recent decades, evolving an industry with spectacular events, which, from a business perspective, is an object for investment. In any economic class, these are the key factors in maintaining and strengthening people's health while improving the technical and innovative approaches to conducting and organizing sporting events. Today, Madam Speaker, I stand and question, how much have we invested in sports? The World Tourism Organization defines sports as a social, cultural, and economic phenomenon, which entails the movement of people to countries or even places outside their usual environment for personal or professional purposes. At the present time, one of the most inseparable parts of economic growth is the tourism industry. Madam Speaker, this statement is only affirming our first whereas clause, which clearly identified that the World Tourism Organization, the United Nations agency responsible for the promotion of sustainable and universally accessible tourism, reports that sports tourism is one of the fastest growing industries. Many countries across the world, Madam Speaker, and more importantly, the Caribbean, have been investing in tourism to overcome their economic difficulties. Referencing the Guyana Chronicles, this industry has a projected growth of US $7.6 billion, and our competitive Caribbean allies like Trinidad, Jamaica, Barbados wasted no time to invest and promote. Do the math, government, and convert the currencies, and then tell me, why hasn't Guyana put our foot on the pedal and seriously develop sports. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, merely budgeting monies to this ministry and the motion at hand is not enough to attract the audience we target. I urge the government to consider our Caribbean neighbor Trinidad and Tobago as a relevant role model to improve our tourism sector. This country has a diverse tourism sector, and it involves sports with all its glory. With the establishment of the Sport Company of Trinidad and Tobago, the partnership of Sport TT and the Tourism Authority, and their sports tourism policy, it is no doubt that Guyana has yet to turn the sod and begin the works. Madam Speaker, Oxford Business Group in 2017 stated that the given example generated 708,144,224 Guyana dollars, along with 37.6 million viewers when they hosted the CPL T20 finals.
Honorable member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And that is only one of their 6 times hosting. Guyana could have been a beneficiary of this economic influx if we had opened our economy sooner, but it is never too late. Hence why we, the opposition, are ready to motivate the government to align ourselves with rapidly growing industries. To conclude, if this Honorable House passes such a transformative motion, Guyana will be compelled to encourage national unity, mold role models for our youths, promote healthy lifestyles, create opportunities for employment, and most importantly, create a lucrative alternative to our oil and gas industry. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Kelroy Williams, Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport, the floor is yours.
Honorable Speaker, members of the Parliament, audience, a good morning to you all. We as a government stand today to scrutinize and dismantle this preposterous motion proposed by the opposition to supposedly boost sports tourism in Guyana. Members of the House, allow me to explain how pushing this motion with the present condition of athletics in Guyana will be devastating towards this country. Currently, Guyana is already implementing strategic ways to develop its sporting industry and athletes. On the 2nd of October 2021, the conference for the country's first ever sports academy was launched, according to the government arm of information, the Department of Public Information. This event focused on 3 main areas: the designs of Guyana's first sports academy and how the government can increase inter-association, collaboration, and ways in which systems related to sports administration and governance can be improved. So far, the government has identified cricket, football, basketball, squash, swimming, track and field, hockey, table tennis, volleyball, and badminton as is the core sports in which the Academy will focus on. Madam Speaker, according to this information received, the Sports Academy will be built on 3 pillars. First being the nursery, second, the tournament, and third, the elite. The government is currently focusing on individuals between the ages of 12 to 25, with the National Sports Commission providing sport organizer and the coaches. The Prime Minister noted that an additional 3 multi-purpose sports stadiums will be constructed at 3 locations: Albion, Linden, and Anna Regina. The Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport, Mr. Charles Ramsden Jr., stated, and I quote, "The Sports Academy is a program that functions very much like the education system, that it builds progressively until we become world-class athletes." Virtuous House, let us pause there for a moment. Until we become world-class athletes. This says to anybody reading or listening to this motion that we are in the process of building the capacity of our athletes in this country. We are working with the grassroots levels to ensure that they can compete in the highest levels of competition that this country will ever see. Is the opposition insinuating that we ought to put the cart before the horse? Are we to, at this stage, implement a fully operational sports tourism sector when we do not have the skill to play at that level that would attract the quantity of tourists that we are looking for? With that being said, members of the opposition, will under-trained athletes attract tourists to our country? But the people pay to travel overseas to see uncompetitive game matches. But our own people pay to see their own team lose? We do not refute the fact that there are several talented young people who have the knowledge and skill to compete at high levels across the world. But to say that we have the capacity to host multiple games at the high level that lucrative sports tourism would require would be completely fallacious and absurd. The government's vision for this country is not to just host local sports events, but international activities as well as activities as well. We want to host major sports events such as the Olympic Games, Pan American Games, FIFA Football World Cup, and Commonwealth Games. These are large-scale events that require a large number of sports facilities and training sites. Being in mind, these facilities must meet the highest international standards. Madam Speaker, it's clear that the members of the opposition are fatuous for attempting to promote this motion with Guyana still being in its neonatal development phase. Madam, my honorable colleague, Minister of Public Works.
Honorable member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister Hamer will solidify the fact that that more must be done to facilitate sports tourism from an infrastructural point of view. Minister of Local Government and Regional Development, the Honorable Alisa Prasad, will point out that before we can develop an entire sector to develop sports tourism, we must ensure the equitable distribution of opportunities, ensuring that all regions of Guyana can benefit from the revenue that sports tourism can bring. All in all, Madam Speaker, the government will collectively dismiss this motion at this time, owing to the fact that much more must be done in the development of the general framework, outlook, and capacity of our country before we can delve into what the opposition viciously calls a fully operational sports tourism sector. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, honorable member. Honorable Sarah Jeffrey, Shadow Minister of Tourism, Industry and Commerce. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me the opportunity to address this honorable House at the outset of such important deliberations that involves the ministry I shadow. Looking over the motion, I can see that the opposition is attempting to make significant contributions to both the tourism industry and the economy as a whole, as well as the individual citizens we were elected to represent. Madam Speaker, in terms of economic growth, employment and wealth creation, environmental protection, and poverty reduction, tourism has long been recognized as one of the industries with the fastest growth rates in the world. All 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and Guyana's Green State of Statistics study of the VEMS survey led to the official recognition of tourism as Guyana's second largest export industry in 2019. In 2018, travel and tourism directly invested $3 million into Guyana's economy and supported 22,000 employment. Madam Speaker, these studies and statistics weren't created to be hung on walls or hidden away. Rather, they were made public so that the government could allow foreign investment into Guyana's economy through tourism. In Guyana, the sports tourism sector is still underdeveloped. Sports are not being played to their full potential and are being narrowed to saturated disciplines. There are numerous ways in which we can improve and enhance tourism with sports, resulting in boosting travel and interest in the nation. Madam Speaker, our country's borders are filled with young people of racial and religious backgrounds who have tremendous cerebral and physical talent and who could be trained to compete. The only difference between these young men and women and Usain Bolt, Keishan Walcott, Karani James, and Shelly Ann Fraser Pierce is the lack of proper training facilities with state-of-the-art technology and professional coaching. Madam Speaker, isn't it the responsibility of all the honorable members sitting in this House to identify and provide these young men and women with the tools they need to succeed at home and abroad? These are the issues that must be urgently addressed as we look at the way forward for the development of sports in Guyana. It is vital that the government, as well as teachers and other administrators, understand the importance of sports in the development of our society and recognize the virtues of applying human and financial resources to this institution accordingly. We must, as a nation, seek to create an environment that provides the facilities and the opportunity for the purposeful and meaningful participation of our students and youths in the various disciplines of sports, such as investment in our youth is worthy down payment on the Guyana's future. We have to get less dependent on handouts and see sports tourism as a business that gives our country a greater return on investment. How can we not see this pot of gold opportunity? I shall remind you, then, that sports tourism remains an untapped industry in Guyana. One simple truth is that it has tremendous potential for growth. And we need to measure the value of international sporting events narrowly by placing an inordinate amount of emphasis on the tangible returns.
Honorable member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. By not ignoring spin-off, such as improving the visibility of our country, lifting the international profile of the sport, and sharing our culture among others. In conclusion, I support the motion not only to promote sports tourism in the country, but to develop it as well. I now rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Zuleika Campbell, Minister of Tourism, Industry and Commerce. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning, Madam Speaker, other members of the Parliament. As the Minister of Tourism, Industry and Commerce, I find this motion proposed by the opposition to be a future prospect for our country, bearing in mind future. However, there are certain amenities that has to first be put in place. These are proper infrastructure, medical care, security, hospitality services, and adequate accommodation. The government is fully aware that sports have the potential to drive economic development, but let's take it one step at a time. Madam Speaker, allow me to remind this honorable House that Rome wasn't built in a day. Can the government pour money into sports events without first doing the necessary groundwork? Take, for instance, infrastructure. Guyana is a developing country as we speak. There are many road projects in progress and still some areas are awaiting budgetary allocations for proper road construction. Our country has 10 administrative regions, all of which must be adequately efficient to host sport events. Sport grounds need to be developed and maintained. All amenities, including lights, public facilities on sport grounds must be in place to attract local and foreign tourists across Guyana. Our administration is currently working on infrastructure, some of which is not completed. Proper roads in each region is essential if we are to invest in sport events that attract tourists, regional and international. Efficient and sufficient medical care throughout Guyana is vital, not only for locals, but for the tourists that may need to utilize our hospitals during their stay. This being said, we appreciate the Sheriff General Hospital recently constructed on the West Coast Region Number 3. This is what we need across Guyana for areas where the population is low. Small state-of-the-art medical services are needed. Madam Speaker, let's take a look at the hospitality industry that includes restaurants, event planning, theme parks, hotels, tourist agencies, all of which personnel employed directly and indirectly must hold hospitality as their number one priority. Acknowledging the government's future plans to build an expansive hospitality institute. This, Madam Speaker, will take time for planning and implementing programs to educate public and private business on the topic hospitality. How about adequate accommodations? This is vital, hosting sports events in Guyana. More hotels being built is a dire need for this country. Does the opposition expect us to have tourists sleep on the road? Or do they think that after the games, the sport arenas will just magically transform into a state-of-the-art hotel? The needs for proper accommodation countrywide has to be met. Then and only then, the potential for tourism development would be vast when hosting sports events in order to benefit economically. Next, security is very important. Crime can have a very negative impact on tourism. This cannot be taken for granted. So it is necessary to make significant efforts to ensure a safe environment for tourists. An article written by Ivan Matukovic.
Honorable member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. An article written by Ivan Matukovic, he said, and I quote, "The impact of crime on tourists is a negative image," end of quote. This being said, our government will put strategies and measures in place which will take a period of time. So we, the government, remain steadfast that investing into sport events will only better the economy and social welfare of Guyana, providing that all the given amenities are put in place. This will take approximately 8 years. Then this motion will be relevant. Preparations must be done first. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Ariana Roberts, Shadow Minister, Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As one of the Caribbean's most esteemed and decorated athletes, Usain Bolt once said, "Easy is not an option. No days off, never quit, be fearless. Talent you have naturally. Skill is only developed by hours and hours of work." I stand before you today, ready to work together and not taking the easy way out. Today, I seek the support of the government side of this Youth Parliament for the development of a fully operational sport tourism sector through improved facilities, training of athletes, and sport education. According to the United Nations World Tourism Organization, sport tourism is one of the fastest growing sectors in the travel industry. This organization also states that international sport tourism is worth $800 billion and accounts for 10% of the world tourism industry. Sport tourism has redefined countries across the world, and according to a new market report by Allied Market Research, the global sport tourism industry was pegged at $323.42 billion in 2020. However, it is expected to reach $1.8 trillion by 2030, growing at a compound annual growth rate of 16.1% from 2021 to 2030. Madam Speaker,
It would be a major loss to our country if that market is not tapped into the benefit of our athletes and the wider economy. We owe it to the hundreds of athletes who get up every day and continue to invest themselves for their sport, even without the necessary support from the government. It was Shivnarine Chandapal, yes, the Chandapal, who said, if the people in your own country can't recognize their national heroes, it's a crying shame. Madam Speaker, the economic benefit from sport tourism is so vast that the bid by the country to host events such as the Olympics is quite intense. Closer to home, Regatta in Bartica has made its mark with sport tourism. This sensational boost in economic activities is one that every resident in Bartica looks forward to benefiting from. Local hotel owners look forward every year for the flow of tourists. Food vendors look forward to the extra money earned, and the boat racers eagerly await the day to showcase their talent. These events, like the Bartica Regatta, is always well attended. Not only do people travel from every region across Guyana to partake in these festivities, but many people also travel from overseas. All this is done with the limited resources that groups like the Bartica Regatta Committee musters up every year. Imagine the possibilities if the national budget allocates resources towards boosting events like the Bartica Regatta. Systematic planning would be done. Infrastructural development would be possible without the hassle of the last-minute scuffle that these committees experience to raise funds for basic infrastructure needs every year. Similarly, rodeo in the Rupununi is another great example of the unique sport tourism market that have tremendous possibilities once invested in. We simply cannot fail to unite our efforts in supporting these activities. Madam Speaker, the motion being presented here today is critical to tourism and, more importantly, critical to boosting economic activities associated with sports tourism. The second whereas clause...
Honorable member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The second whereas clause touches on the sport tourism industry and economic opportunities it presents globally. As I described in my example on Regatta, event owners, sporting good manufacturers, the outdoor recreation industry, the travel industry, host destinations, all benefit from the economic activities associated with sports tourism activity. Once again, in the words of Shivnarine Chandapal, if the people in your own country can't recognize their national heroes, it's a crying shame. Madam Speaker, if the members of the government in this youth parliament fail to see the dire need to support this motion and recognize the needs for heavy investment in sport tourism for Guyana, that too would be a crying shame. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Luvani Evans, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I don't know if the speaker before me was the Junior Minister of Tourism or the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. Madam Speaker, fellow cabinet members, members of the opposition, I stand before you this morning as the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation to present my argument on the motion presented by the Shadow Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport on the development of sport to promote sport tourism in Guyana. Tourism and sports are interrelated. They are complementary. Sports are played by professionals and amateurs. It is a leisure activity. Athletes are required to do a lot of traveling to compete in different countries. Sporting events have become powerful tourist attractions because they make a positive impact, in most cases, to the image of the host destination. Indeed, sport tourism has the potential to attract high-yield visitors and repeat visitors, thereby enabling increased tourist numbers.
However, there are downsides to it being introduced prematurely. It seems like the opposition wants to put the cart before the horse. To attract tourists and make sure that they return, there is need for infrastructural works to be done, such as building of hotels to ensure that there is sufficient accommodation that is of high standard in order to be able to compete with other countries in the Caribbean and farther afield. According to an article carried in the Guyana Chronicle dated November 12, 2021, and I quote, "There is need for us, a country, to upgrade our social and physical infrastructure and create a strong and vibrant hospitality sector despite some progress in terms of hotel accommodation that is top class to cater for foreign dignitaries and business executives," unquote. Presently, there are only 3 top-class hotels in Guyana: the Marriott Hotel, Princess Ramada Hotel, and Pegasus Suites. These are insufficient rooms to cater to persons who come into the country for high-level events at any given time. Madam Speaker, it is said that we are very hospitable people. This is not always the case in formal settings where sometimes receptionists, taxi drivers, etc. are sometimes rude and dishonest. Therefore, hospitality training needs to be made compulsory for all service providers to ensure that all visitors to our beautiful country and also our Guyanese brothers and sisters who travel inwardly for sporting events experience the same high quality of hospitality that will leave an indelible impression on their minds, causing them to crave more and more in the future in the same way that our Blackwater and lava already does. When persons visit from abroad and the host country cannot meet their expectations, they may never return to Guyana. To make this a reality, we must encourage foreign investment since it is part of an open and effective economic system and a major catalyst for development. However, it is the host country that will have to facilitate this by establishing good relationships and making use of assistance from overseas to leverage public and private investment projects. Madam Speaker, and this is where I will have much to say, with effective foreign relations and collaboration, Guyana will be a stage set for all events that will not only survive the litmus test but also thrive. I therefore present to you that while I am not against the promotion of sport tourism, there are things that the government must do through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation to lay the groundwork for sports tourism to not only be introduced, but for it to be successful and bring about the desired results. According to
Honorable member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. According to Foreign Policy in a Globalizing World by Stephen J. Jackson and Stephen Hague, the implementation of foreign policies play a crucial role in understanding the influence of global sports. Jackson points out that it is of utmost importance that countries develop a strong foreign policy so as to effectively collaborate for the execution of sporting events. How can one understand this, Madam Speaker, but attempt to walk blindly into crafting a fully operational sports tourism sector? This government is not one that believes in jumping into activities, events, or investment without the requisite research or implementation being done. It is with the presentation of these poignant principles, values, and potential policies that I cannot and we will not support the passage of this motion without first implementing these very important concepts. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Anisha Frank, Shadow Minister of Public Works, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As Cara Mosley Brown put in, we must invest in infrastructure development and community rehabilitation. I rise to formally assert myself and team in front of you. Madam Speaker, let me start by saying Georgetown is a well-known area to house 3/4 of our functional sports facilities. For instance, Guyana National Park, the National Racquet Center, Aquatic Center, and Cliff Anderson Sports Hall. And that is not fair for the rest of the country. Without certain facilities, it is impossible to own the skills needed to become a seasoned athlete currently. Is it fair, Madam Speaker? Is it fair, Madam Speaker, that the people from the inland regions have to travel great distances just to be able to access the equipment unavailable for them? Is it fair that parents have to be okay with children leaving home done what o'clock just for them to be able to have a small chance of making it in their area of interest? If we are supposed to be one Guyana, why not act like it? Why not invest in at least one facility per district per annum? This is the bare minimum. Oh, God. This is the bare minimum, but it is, however, a step in the right direction and a journey of 1,000 steps. Start with one. Madam Speaker, as stated in our motion, we seek the development sporting sector to promote sports tourism through training, athlete sports, education, and improved facilities. Improved facilities referring to facilities to facilitate all disciplines of sports Guyana, cater for, and not just for few sports. Madam Speaker, I brought up this topic because it hurts me to observe that despite a little amount of sports that are being played, our nation still lacks of infrastructure to host these sportsmen. Permit me to give you an example, Madam Speaker. In the wee hours of February 8, 2020, national cyclist Jude Bentley was struck and killed while training on the Rupert Bragg Highway. And it's hurt my heart to think about the life that could have been saved, a national treasure that could have been preserved. If we had a training facility where cyclists could train as needed out of harm's way. What stood out to me was how Mr. Bentley had a cyclist, Madam Speaker, approximately 3/4 of his 41 years of life, and until his final moment had not the privilege of seeing the creation of cycling facilities come to pass. Madam Speaker, we don't want promise, we want action, because the opposition have come with all our 10 fingers and 10 toes. The amount time the government promised to do anything relating to the development of sports industry in Guyana. But I can count with one hand.
Honorable member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. But I can count with one hand without the use of all 5 fingers the amount of time we actually follow through. We all know the journey of thousands of miles. Take steps. Let's not sleep on our... Let's not sleep... Let's not sleep on our could be nation's treasure. Let us not assist in adding a number of people that have turned in their sporting equipment of this job. Thank you. I rest my case.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Michaela Hamer, Minister of Public Works, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I am happy that the speaker before me understands that the government position that we cannot bring foreigners into the country before developing our own infrastructure. I want to thank her for that. A microscope topic scrutiny of the opposition sports tourism motion by my team and I revealed a plethora of flaws, which I, as the Minister of Public Works, will highlight, thus proving beyond reasonable doubt why this motion cannot be accepted and passed in this honorable House. Madam Speaker, the motion tabled by the opposition leaves much to be desired. It is defective because it lacks foundation and is narrow in scope since it does not consider all the vital components needed to make it feasible. How can they hope to develop a fully operational sports tourism sector only through improved facilities, training of athletes, and sports tourism? Madam Speaker, this rationale can only be the result of ineptitude, since the development of such a sector would require significantly more input than this. Madam Speaker, it would be remiss of me not to highlight that sports tourism encompasses much more than the opposition would like us to believe. Madam Speaker, for sports tourism to be a viable sector in Guyana, considerable emphasis must be placed on the development of infrastructure. This infrastructure, Madam Speaker, includes far more than just sports facilities, as the misguided members of the opposition would have you believe. What good would it be, Madam Speaker, to have state-of-the-art sports halls or gymnasiums, but deplorable roads to access them? What would be the point of having thousands of people coming from out of town and abroad for a sporting activity, but not have adequate accommodations for them? Madam Speaker, I would like to believe that the members of the opposition are Guyanese, and with them being honorable members of this House, should offend themselves with the current affairs of this country. On April 20, 2022, Department of Public Information, DPI, published an article stating that the President of Guyana announced that 300 prefabricated houses will be erected to accommodate individuals coming to Guyana for the CPL Games. I wonder how much of a representation they are making for the people when they do not know this public information. It is no wonder they are on the opposing side of this honorable House. Madam Speaker, while the intentions of the opposition may be good, there are other things to take into consideration, such as hospitality services, transportation, and security, amongst others, which the government are clearly in the process of implementing. Is Guyana ready to take on the mantle of hosting Olympic Games of world-class magnitude with facilities that cater for all sports disciplines in one global village like we see in Tokyo? Accommodations, restaurants, easy access to these venues? I know that will be a resounding no. That is not to say we never will. We are crawling before we walk, Madam Speaker, to ensure that when we stand, we do so firm and strong. Madam Speaker, it is also worthy to note that when we speak of sports tourism, we must examine it from a countrywide perspective and not just a Georgetown perspective. For the entire country to benefit from the economic spoils associated with sports tourism, facilities must be decentralized and spread across all regions. This, Madam Speaker, will incur costs for feasibility studies to determine appropriate location for such facilities, as well as costs for infrastructural development such as water, electricity, roads, and hospitality services. Madam Speaker, another contentious point of this motion is the use of the quote from the DPI article, highlighting that oil production should grow Guyana's gross domestic product by 47.5%. Madam Speaker, would the opposition have us believe that we should make these investments just because we have the financial power? What is this?
Honorable member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. What is this? Shop just because? So because it is presumed that we will have a higher GDP, we should blindly invest in sports tourism without any thought of what it really entails? Red flag, red flag, red flag. To accept this bill in its current state would pay into the adage of one man's meat is another man's poison. While sports tourism may be a growing sector worldwide, is Guyana ready for such an investment? Is Guyana looking to be the jack of all trades but master of none? We are not against the establishment and development of the sports tourism industry, Madam Speaker, but Guyana's tourism and hospitality sector is now blossoming from its infancy stage, and careful consideration must be given to the next step so that we do not do too much too quickly and bite off more than we can chew. Why should we accept this bill in its unrefined state? We cannot. We do not. Madam Speaker, Guyana currently boasts a few notable sports facilities facilities that promote sports tourism, such as the National Stadium, where the Hero CPL finals will be held for the next 3 years, the synthetic track at Lenora, and the Rising Sun Turf Club, where the recently concluded Guyana Cup was held, among others. Madam Speaker, the chaos ensued with a traffic jam for miles because of that event underscores my point that having sports facilities is not only what's needed for sports tourism. In addition, there needs to be other infrastructure such as alternative roads, parking lots, and emergency services. Madam Speaker, the more I mull over the bill table today, the more I realize on how unhinged the member of the opposition seem to be. I am convinced that they themselves are not fully aware of what sports tourism is and all that it entails. While sport...
Honorable member, your time is up.
If it pleases you, Madam Speaker, I would like to move that the honorable member gets 1 minute extension. Thank you.
Honorable member, you have 30 seconds to conclude.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. While sports tourism does have its benefits, some of which we are already experiencing with the little that we have, the development of a fully operational sports tourism industry currently, while the country's tourism industry is still growing out of its baby stage, is not feasible and totally absurd. I thank you.
Thank you, honorable member. Honorable Lorraine Lewis, Shadow Minister of Education, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I confidently stand here today to show my support for the opposition's motion, which seeks to develop the sports industry in Guyana to promote sports tourism. George A. Sheehan once said, "Sports is an essential element of education." If this is so, Madam Speaker, why is it that sports truly treated as an essential in our education system? Madam Speaker, in a study done by the University of Michigan titled "The Positive Impact of Sports on Education" that was conducted on August 14, 2019, their research shows the relationship between sports and education has mostly been focused on the role of sports activities in the life of primary students or adolescents, as well as sports activity inside or outside, whether the involvement of sports activity inside or outside the classroom has been proven to show improvement on students' has proven positive effects on students' educational achievements and efficacy. Again, Madam Speaker, why is it that sports in our education system is treated so minimally? Or is it that the government believes our students to be incapable of sharpening their minds and strengthening their skills through sports? The fact of the matter is, the government does not even invest enough in sports, particularly in schools. How can we ever truly know? Madam Speaker, I would also like to bring to your attention the lack of advocating done for our school athletes. We can say as students of our education system, whether it be inter-schools or interzones, the awareness for these things are very minimal. Therefore, allow me to question you, Madam Speaker. How are young school athletes supposed to feel encouraged to continue to pursue sports when they're not recognized as they should be for their achievements? Furthermore, Madam Speaker, I, as the Shadow Minister of Education, would like to see our potential athletes in our education system motivated to participate in sports, and our current Guyanese are funded and recognized for their contributions for our Guyanese sports industry. Take for instance, Jamaica, which regularly advocates its school athletes to be recognized for their achievements nationally and worldwide, while our youths of Guyana depend on social media and word of mouth to be informed of what is supposed to be known event. As an example, Emmanuel Archibald is a Guyanese-born athlete that represented his country in the Olympics and does not even train on his own home soil. What does this say
to our aspiring athletes that the government is incapable of supporting and accommodating for our flourishing young talents? Madam Speaker, the National Policy 2019 strives to provide improvement of relationships between school sports and local sports clubs by monitoring facility sharing and coach expertise. But this can't truly happen, as some of the facilities being used by our local sports club are old, faulty, and some of the training grounds built for the use of our young athletes are even incomplete. This is because of the lack of funding and the inadequate funds given by the government. Madam Speaker, I would like to make you aware that the Regional Democratic Council of Region 10 has expressed concern about the lack of interest shown in youth, sports, and culture in Region 10. With questions...
Honorable member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. With questions raised at its most recent statutory meeting on Thursday regarding the ignoring of their calls of a youth and sports officer, the completion of the synthetic track that was proposed construction of a mini stadium in Linden and any improvements slated for the Mackenzie Sports Club ground. This was reported in an article by Kaichor News on July 20th, 2022. Nonetheless, our young athletes continue to be disappointed due to the perceived neglect of a project that would be finished by the installation of synthetic tracks. Madam Speaker, if the government does not begin to modify how we distribute our finances to sports in our schools and do our best to educate them in this field, our young athletes may never meet their full potential, failing to grow and improve our sports tourism sector for the better of Guyana. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Alyssa Prasad, Minister of Local Government and Regional Development, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, honorable members of Parliament from both sides of the House, good morning. Honorable member, if we are taking sports across Guyana, have you thought about how and when we will get there? My question today is, Madam Speaker, are they positively sure that Guyana is ready at this precise moment for such an investment? Is it not true, honorable members of the House, that a tourist's primary goal is to seek fun, enjoyment, and comfort? In the past, we haven't offered tourists many choices. Our country attracts an abundance of tourists, not only for sports, but also to explore. It is important to them that when they come into our country that they get the full package. And it's not just the tourists, but the athletes as well. Whether it's a diverse culture, the food, the multiple venues, or the main event, they want it all. Many of our citizens, let alone tourists, have never had the opportunity to experience Guyana truly. Madam Speaker, in the light of this, our government is in the process of building housing facilities, constructing roads, and sports facilities. This will not only boost our tourism industry, but will also add to our economic value. In addition, it will definitely boost our sports sector. However, this, my friends, on the other side of the house, cannot be done in the blink of an eye. It cannot be done in the blink of an eye. Our ministries are focused on developing each square inch of Guyana. This motion is definitely a good proposal. However, it should be put aside for future references. Guyana isn't ready for this venture until we are developed enough. Madam Speaker, allow me to enlighten this honorable House. Currently, there are over 2,000 communities across Guyana engaged in developmental works and some that are yet to be developed. As of recent, the construction of 300 roads has begun. Additional roads needs to be constructed, especially in the interior regions. Half of the roads in Guyana are damaged, sloped, and inclusive of numerous potholes that some of our vehicles cannot get through. Is this the impression we will be giving our tourists? We need additional roads, comrades. We need roads that cater for all types of vehicles, no matter their model. Bringing foreigners into our country means we first must create a safe environment. And no, I am not saying the government thinks Guyana is an unsafe place.
We, the government, are saying that we need to look reality into its eyes. Oil isn't the only reason we are known for on the social media platforms, you know. We are also there for not being able to wear a gold chain in some of our streets. If we remember, Madam Speaker, there was a popular saying, and I quote, "The Molly team has officially arrived." So you know what that means? Hold your phone, your chain, your bag, because tonight the Don Stug's running wild. End of quote. We cannot be comfortable with statements like these being made about Guyana and promote this massive level of tourism in this state. If we're going to bring tourists into our country, we need to ensure that they're in a safe place, both physically and mentally. But how? How will they be safe if they're in a community that is currently under development? Region 4 is one of the most developed regions, and majority of large sports activities are held here. Because let's face it, the National Stadium and the Lenore Sports Hall. If we do not focus on developing the other regions too, to be hosts, how long would we continue to get tourists who would continuously come back to the same spots? Our Guyana is a beautiful place, Madam Speaker. There's no doubt about that. Look at our very own Kaitor Falls, for instance. It's an adventure to get there, and it's a dream to be there. The same feeling should be experienced with a fully developed and natural Guyana. We, the government, are working assiduously on this as a future goal. Don't jump the gun, my people. Or like Granny Sati would say, don't hang your hat where you can't reach 'em. We are all prestigious ministers and diplomats. So think about it. How can we invest in such a venture until we create the proper facilities needed? Don't get me wrong, developing sports to promote sport tourism in Guyana, as I would have said, is a great idea. But as your Minister of Local Government and Regional Development, I am telling you, Guyana is not ready. We are not ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Aruni Seeley, Shadow Minister of Responsibility for Finance, the floor is yours.
In the words of current U.S. President Joseph R. Biden Jr., and I quote, "Don't tell me what you value. Show me your budget, and I'll tell you what you value." End quote. With this assertion, I stand today in support of the motion that seeks to develop sports with efforts to promote sport tourism in Guyana. In reference to the most recent update of Guyana Budget Estimates 2022, the government has demonstrated clearly their stance on the topic of the enhancement of sports facilities in schools throughout Guyana, along with the sport education and training needed to be provided to youth. Unlike Budgets 2020 and 2021, which allocated each $2.7 billion to culture, youth, and sports, Budget 2022, the largest in Guyana's history, made no mentions of the funds needed to support our lacking sports sector. Which brings me to my next point. Taken from Tourism Guyana 2020, and I quote, "Sport and tourism are inextricably linked, and that interconnection has contributed positively to the global tourism product. It is, quite simply put, $1 billion industry." End of quote. Madam Speaker, I question this government's insufficiency to jump on that fast-paced bandwagon that is the sports tourism sector, taking the old and new worlds by storm. A.T. Kearney, a global management consulting firm, estimated the global worth of the sports industry to be worth between $480 and $620 billion, while globally, tourism's direct contribution to GDP was at an estimated $4.7 trillion in 2020, as reported by Statista. With the lack of significant emphasis being placed on this market, does the government mean to imply that we lack the raw talent, the willing youth, and the hunger of our youth to take this multi-billion-dollar business by the reins? The fact of the matter is that we lack the support and necessary resources to give Guyana the benefit of the first steps to reaching these global achievements. We owe it to our children whose abilities are being undermined and misrepresented in the inconsistency of this government's decisions with regards to sports. Through the Caribbean Premier League, formerly referred to as the CPL, Guyana has made remarkable profits upon the inception of the tournament. According to Guyana Times International 2018, CPL assessment reports showed that, and I quote, the economy received close to US $17 million last season, end of quote. Published by Tourism Guyana 2020, and I quote, the 2019 event created a total economic impact of $29,540,926 in the country. The report further mentioned that in addition to the economic impact figure, the tournament created a total of 608 job opportunities in the year 2019. Madam Speaker, is this not further evidence that Guyana must therefore capitalize on the consistent economic successes of CPL and therefore work towards pushing for development of sports tourism in general? Clearly, the tournament has provided us with the perfect opportunity to create, implement a sustained sports tourism sector. While we commend the implementation of facilities like the Guyana Football Federation National Training Center, I can list on one hand the amount of fully functioning sports facilities we have located in this country. In addition, Madam Speaker, these facilities are located primarily in Regions 3 and 4. And by no means am I saying that these regions do not need further development, but I reprimand the government on their insufficiency to supply resources to other disadvantaged regions. Our comrades.
Honorable member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Our comrades in Caribbean countries like Jamaica, Grenada, Barbados, regarded as praiseworthy models of sports tourism, have made the bold decision to fuel the necessary investments into critical areas. Guyana should also do the same. As quoted by Tourism Officer of Trinidad and Tobago, Andrew Welch, and I quote, Guyana is the new frontier for sports tourism. For tourism to work, we need to train our citizens. If we do not train children about tourism, we will have challenges. End of quote. As I bring my argument to a close, I urge the government to consider Mr. Welch's words. The CPL and Amazon Warriors have provided us with a taste of the flourishing possibility of what is yet to come. But only when taken in full gravity can our people mold the first steps to a powerful and successful future. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Samuel Peters, Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance, the floor is yours.
Madam Speaker, before I say anything else, permit me to ensure that this House is not misled. In 2022, according to the DPI, Department of Public Information, a sum of $2.2 billion was allocated, and I quote, to expand and develop the national sports sector in 2022, end quote. All protocols have been established. Honorable Speaker, members of Parliament, mentors, audience. The introduction of sport tourism as a major industry in Guyana seems to be an excellent idea, and it would certainly be in the nation's best interest to see Guyana taking advantage of many opportunities available in the sector. Sport tourism refers to the travel that takes individually, temporarily outside of their houses, home communities, to participate and or watch physical activities to idealize attraction associated with physical activity. That being said, the government wishes to bring to the forefront that major sporting events such as Olympic Games, international football and cricket championships have become powerful tourism attractions in themselves, making a very positive contribution to the tourism image of the whole destination. However, Madam Speaker and members of the opposition, are we as a country ready for this? Are we truly able to make a further major investment? This is a process, and if we are to get there, we need to take necessary steps. Considering the fact that opposition seems unaware about what the government is already doing, the first ensure that sport is highly developed, allow me to point out that there are 5 steps to developing an industry like this. Firstly, invest in market scale and future market potential. Secondly, designing and developing sport tourism products. Thirdly, promoting sport tourism. Fourthly, determining target market and formulating sport tourism product strategy, pricing, and sales strategy for the sport tourism products. Fifthly, establishing sport tourism courses in secondary and technical schools to nourish talent for the nation. Madam Speaker, where are we in this preparation phase? What have we done? Allow me, as the Minister with responsibility of finance, to enlighten the seemingly unaware opposition. This government have given sport a major boost with 1.5 billion budgeted to felicitate government programs. The overall amount, $915.5 million, is allocated for the improvement of community ground countrywide to expand their use of parks and create premier multi-purpose sporting facilities of international standards in and throughout the country. Other improvements include the installation of lights on the community grounds, layout of artificial materials at the athletic sports in New Amsterdam and Linden, and upgrading of other sport facilities. We have added a sum of $680 million to be utilized to hold tourism, maintain sport facilities, and support select sport associations. Of this amount, 320 was budgeted for professional training athletes and coaches as part of a sport academy program. With all these finances
Honorable
allocated,
member, you have 1 minute remaining.
thank you, Ms. Speaker. With all these finances allocated for development of sport, training of athletes, and improvement of sport facilities, how can the opposition attempt to make it seem like sport development is solely their idea? It is evident for the figures above that we have seen the need for this development, and as a government, we do not just talk, we put our money where our mouth is. As the current Minister of Finance, I can boldly say that the government believes strongly in investing in sport facilities, and maintaining sport education through the educational curriculum. But as you will hear from other speakers on the side of the House, it will be a grave mistake to invest in a fully operational sport tourism sector without developing all the other sporting sectors and industry first. The one mentioned above was indirectly involved. This is why, Madam Speaker, we cannot do this at this time. We cannot at this time support this motion. I thank you.
Thank you, honorable member. Honorable Abner Gomes, Minister of Labor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, fellow members of the Cabinet of Guyana, members of the opposition, esteemed judges and media operators, a pleasant day to you. I stand before you today as the Minister of Labor to present my argument on behalf of the government as it relates to the motion tabled by the opposition, and I quote, the development of sport to promote sport tourism in Guyana. As we are all aware, our dear land of Guyana is on the brink of major economic transformation. The government believes that this transformation should be reflected in all sectors, and we are working assiduously to ensure that this becomes a reality. However, we strongly believe that this development must happen in phases. Everything cannot happen all at once, since it requires careful planning, where many factors must be taken into consideration. Madam Speaker, let's take into consideration the fact that such an endeavor would require a labor force that is well equipped in terms of the number of persons readily available to carry out certain tasks effectively within the sector. Presently, the government does not have the available workforce. According to a report from the Migration Policy Institute, and I quote, Guyana, dubbed the fastest growing economy in the world in 2022, will need 160,000 workers to keep up with the economic boom. As it relates to the workforce across sectors based on the Ghana Labor Force Survey 2021, a minuscule 20% of the employed population is public sector workers, while a whopping 75% are private sector workers, and the remaining 7% are non-profit workers. We can clearly see that there's a significant difference of...
Madam Speaker, I rise on a point of order.
Proceed.
According to Chapter 5.6, a member should not read his speech. Or more directly, a member shall not read his or her speech except with the leave of the speaker. Thank you.
Honorable member, that is irrelevant. Honorable member, please proceed.
We can clearly see that there's a significant difference of 53% when comparing the sectors. Another factor to take into consideration is the skill set or skill level of our labor force. To facilitate sports tourism, we must have a labor force that is skilled to take on the various tasks within the sector. There is no shying away from the fact that the majority of our labor force comprises persons who acquire the bare minimum of education. Guyana Labor Force Survey 2021 highlights that 55.5% of our labor force had attained no education or primary school level of education at minimum, and only 35.8% had obtained secondary or tertiary education. This clearly shows that we have to first invest in helping to qualify our people in order to have a viable workforce to function effectively in any sector, more to the sector of sports tourism. Madam Speaker, our government, being a progressive one, has begun to set the stage for a major transformation in the tourism sector, having taken certain factors into consideration. This has led the government seeking financial support to begin building capacity in the tourism and hospitality sector. Evidence of this is highlighted in the Stabroek News of December 20th, 2020, where it states, I quote, the government of Guyana announced that it has secured a loan from the Caribbean Development Bank for the construction of a $11.6 million Hospitality and Tourism Institute. The aim of this institute is to provide international training for persons to meet the demands required in the tourism and hospitality sector. Madam Speaker, the government, through the Ministry of Tourism, has also paved the way for branded hotels to be
Honorable
introduced.
member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the government, through the Ministry of Tourism, has also paved the way for branded hotels to be introduced in Guyana, which would require a labor force from the lowest level of employees to managerial staff. As mentioned in an article by the Department of Public Information, November 29, 2021, Barbados is willing to work along with Guyana to develop a curriculum and begin training of persons before the Hospitality and Tourism Institute is completed so that the need can be filled for a trained labor force whereby at least 6,000 persons will be trained to meet the growing demand in this sector. Madam Speaker, to state where we are currently, I hereby refer to a letter to the editor in the Stabroek newspaper of January 15, 2021, where a concerned citizen, Janelle Cameron, described her horrendous experience at one of Guyana's premium hotel. She lamented the customer service that was provided while at the particular facility. In highlighting her experience, she lamented that the waitress did not attend to her needs as was expected.
Honorable member, your time is up.
If it pleases you again, Madam Speaker, I'd like to ask for a 1-minute extension.
Honorable member, you have 30 seconds to conclude.
This resulted in her food being contaminated with flies being found in her drink while at the restaurant.
Wow.
The waitress was very disrespectful and inconsiderate in dealing with the matter at hand. This experience only underscores the importance of training in the hospitality sector of Guyana. Can you imagine if we are to operate a fully operational sports tourism sector, have foreigners and investors come to this beautiful land of ours and be treated in the most despicable, distasteful, and horrendous manner when at one of these venues? We cannot afford, and it is for this reason, while I am not against the sport tourism, Madam Speaker, I will not support its implementation at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable member. Honorable Mark Gajraj, Minister of Parliamentary Affairs and Governance and Government Chief Whip, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, meticulous timekeeper, members of the opposition, and attentive audience, good morning to you all. In opposition of the moot, the objective of my team and I is to show you that the motion, the development of sports to promote tourism in Guyana, may be of more detriment than good in our current society. Madam Speaker, as we know, cricket is one of the most prevalent sports in Guyana's history, to the extent of us having a regional team, the Guyana Amazon Warriors. But according to the Caribbean Premier League, and I quote, assessment reports compiled show that the Guyanese economy received close to $17 million last season. The net sum was calculated by looking at the influx of tourists to the countries, hotel bookings, vending during the games, and the overall spending of persons during this period. And while this may seem to be a substantial amount of money coming into the country, the average sports complex that serves as a training ground as well as a tourist destination cost about $30 to $45 million according to sportsfacilities.com. This is a $13 million loss on the low end coming from the most popular sport in our country. So tell me, why should we invest in this motion when we begin investing in it in a massive economic deficit? Not to mention, several of these facilities would have to be built around the country to allow for equal opportunities to be given to aspiring athletes all around, especially the hinterland and indigenous regions. This is all without taking into account finding land that is conducive to building a sports complex in terms of the accessibility of the area, as well as it having the necessary infrastructure to house and entertain tourists. Take into account the Cliff Anderson Sports Hall. Should we invest time and capital into renovating this facility for sports tourism when the traffic lights on Mandela Avenue through which it is accessed are barely functional on many days? Should we not allocate funds to fixing issues like these instead? On top of this all, the lack of opportunity for many athletes in Guyana would make it so that they cannot fully maximize on their potential. Scouts for many important teams and clubs of varying sports simply do not attend many games, therefore making it unlikely for any talent we have to be recognized and propelled to stardom. Even if we were to pass this motion, ignoring these already dissuading factors, right now across the world, the likelihood of producing athletes that are well known enough to bring an exceptional amount of income and tourism to the country is still extremely low. According to a report filed by the National College Athletic Association in 2020, fewer than 2% of all college athletes go on to play professional sports. 2%, meaning that the chances of us producing a high-level, recognized athlete are slim to none, especially taking into account our small population. No recognized athletes equates to no increased influx of sports tourism, plain and simple. Madam Speaker, we all know how hard it is to achieve international recognition from sports. Even if we choose to venture out into more popular sports such as basketball or American football to get more eyes focused on us, the fact of the matter is, despite how much a person trains, participating in these sports requires a person to hit the genetic lottery in a sense, in terms of having an adequate height, a large frame, and much, much more. These criteria are simply not met by the majority of the Guyanese people, and even if they were to be met, these high-level sports are already dominated by well-established teams and have been for decades, making it hard for us to gain any international recognition. Honorable members, a more local improvement to sport complexes and communities is much more viable, as it requires a smaller overall investment to the cause and provides adequate recreation for the youths of that area. Anything outside of a local effort would be unwise and would prove to be detrimental if invested in, as Guyana simply does not have the necessary infrastructure to accommodate these stores in its current framework. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Atiya Alikok, Leader of the Opposition, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. According to John Von Go, treat people as if they are what they ought to be, so that we can help them become what they're capable of becoming. As the Leader of the Opposition, I formally rise to make my contribution to this motion, which seeks to effectively develop the sports sector to promote sports tourism in Guyana. As a sports-oriented youth, I strongly believe that Guyana does not adequately cater for the development of sports. However, Madam Speaker, this area of development is possible. Madam Speaker, preventing the economy from drifting towards a detrimental tendency linked to the Dutch disease is urgently needed. The latest report from the Inter-American Development Bank, 9th of August 2022, have projected that Guyana's oil and gas sector caters for 60% of the country's GDP. Madam Speaker, though this may be promising, our nation simply cannot depend on a tangible industry. Are we supposed to rely solely on non-renewable resources? Do we want our country to sing sorrows like Venezuela when oil prices collapsed? If this is the government's motive for Guyana, we, the opposition, will not sit back and tolerate such acts, but strongly advise the government to support our motion, which proposes to make a sufficient investment towards developing sports to promote sports tourism in Guyana through improved facility, training of athletes, and sports education. Madam Speaker, although physical education and sports is a part of the academic program at the CSEC and CAPE level, it pains me to admit that the current program does little to nothing to advance the growth of sports. Statistics from CSEC results in Guyana has shown that physical education and sports secured a pass rate of 100% in 2019, 99.9% in 2020, and in 2021, 99.28%. Let me put this in Guyanese Creole. Learning is one thing, but applying what you learn is a next. Madam Speaker, if this vast percentage of our students are excelling, why aren't we reaping the benefits of similar standards at the international games? At the Commonwealth Games 2022, 32 of our athletes participated, compared to Jamaica, which had a whooping 136 athletes. How many of our 32 athletes medaled at this game? We must acknowledge your efforts in representing us. However, Madam Speaker, I can't help but consider the possibilities those athletes may have achieved if adequate training, improved facility, and sports education had been given more priority. It leads me to question the significance of the role of physical education. If I may, Madam Speaker, allow me to share a more effective program that can be implemented at a basic level that has been demonstrated to be effective in nations like Jamaica, where sports tourism is developing by the second. Training in sports should start with training our young athletes at the nursery level. As they advance at the primary level, professionals are necessary to identify and engage them in their areas of interest. We need to stop delaying the development of sports until secondary school.
Honorable member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Which in most cases, if you aren't fortunate enough to attend a school where training facility and coaches are of decent standard, your talent will be stifled. Madam Speaker, when our students graduate secondary school, they should graduate with a knowledge and ability capable of excelling in sports that can place Guyana on the map regionally and internationally, rather than just a piece of paper saying they've received a grade 1 for physical education and sports. If the government does not support this motion for the growth of a fully functional sports tourism sector through improved facility, training of athletes, and sports education, this great nation will not be able to unleash the true potential of Guyana's sports tourism industry. Thus, I implore you, Madam Speaker, an honorable member of this House, to not lose sight of the fact that the advancement of this great nation lies in the hands of its youth. For all our sake, let's make an investment towards their future. Vote to pass the opposition's motion. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable member. Honorable Aaron St. Hill, Shadow Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport. The floor is yours.
Indeed, as one of the honorable members said, Rome wasn't built in one day. But let us agree to make this motion the first brick of many laid. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise for the second time to neutralize the government's contributions to this motion at hand, while reaffirming the opposition's stance on fostering economic growth through sports tourism. First and foremost, I would like to express my disappointment with the government's stance. However, I am not surprised. It is insensitive for anyone with athletic backgrounds to stand here in this honorable House and demean a motion that seeks to enhance the sector that we play such a role in. The Honorable Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport stood and expressed his views and asked if, and I quote, will undertrained athletes attract tourists? Madam Speaker, the member clearly didn't read the motion, but nevertheless, I will reiterate. Be it resolved that this youth parliament supports the development of a fully operational sports tourism sector through improved facilities, training of athletes, and sport education. And Madam Speaker, isn't it the solemn duty of the government, especially this ministry, to put those systems in place? The Honorable Minister basically admitted that the government has been slacking in their responsibilities while leaving our athletes stranded. 8 years, cart before the horse. Madam Speaker, it seems as though I'm hearing excuses that they call promises. It seems the government shares our view that serious development needs to be done, that our untrained athletes need professional assistance, that our hotels need to be modernized and improved so that we don't sleep on the roads, that we have the expertise and facilities required so we don't have a losing team. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, it is no doubt that the members of the government have lost their vision or sight and need to take a stroll to the optician, not the bank. The Honorable Minister of Public Works stated that we should crawl before we walk. But maybe the government should start crawling faster because the country would benefit if they do. Additionally, Madam Speaker, the Minister, Ms. Campbell, stood shamelessly and stated, future prospect, bearing in mind future. We cannot advance to the future successfully without starting now in the present. But it did not end there. The minister said the government is fully aware. However, they're not doing anything about it. Is that another admission to the incompetence of this administration? I truly believe the government failed to put forward a properly constructed presentation towards this motion. Their poorly written speeches has left me with so much to reply that I must conclude. So I advise the government to think big and vote aye. Madam Speaker, I'll sum up my arguments in favor of this motion by stating that the government is seriously mistaken if it continues to rely entirely on one industry at a time and thinks it can make promises and plans to or ignore the populace without carrying them out. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable member. Is there a seconder?
I rise to second the motion.
I second the motion.
I second the motion.
Honorable members, the motion is proposed. That concludes the debate on the motion. I now put a question. Those in favor say aye.
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 Those against say no.
Division.
Yes.
Division, Mr. Clerk.
Elisa Ishmael,
Yes.
Aaron St. Hill,
Aye.
Davina Singh,
Yes.
Indrani Prasad,
Yes.
Brandon Henry,
Aye.
Sarah Jeffrey,
Aye.
Alyssa Isaacs,
Aye.
Shekinah London,
Aye.
Phoebe Croker,
Aye.
Farhan El Mudin,
Aye.
Quincy Andrews,
Aye.
Lorraine Lewis,
Aye.
Odessa Johnny,
Aye.
Inisha Frank,
Aye.
Aruni Seeley,
Aye.
Ariana Roberts,
Aye.
Crystal Welch,
Aye.
Mohammed Baksh,
Aye.
Atia Alikok,
Aye.
Tisian Jones,
No.
Marcy Augustus,
No.
Kelroy Williams,
No.
Renuka Dindial,
No.
Naomi Reddy,
No.
Alyssa Prasad,
No.
Zalika Campbell,
No.
Rebecca Ganish,
No.
Abner Gomes,
No.
Michelle Lott,
No.
Shaquan Morrison,
No.
Renisa Golding,
No.
Terry Ann Wright,
No.
Darian Lucas,
No.
Michaela Hamer,
No.
Samuel Peters, Luvani Evans,
No.
Mark Gadraj,
No.
Carlos Branford, no. Reginald Brong.
No.
Madam Speaker, 19 members voted in favor of the motion, 20 members voted against the motion, and 0 members abstained.
Honorable members, the motion is negative. Honorable members, this brings us to the end of our business on the order paper for this morning. Honorable Prime Minister, you may move the adjournment.
Madam Speaker, I wish to move the adjournment of the Assembly till 1 o'clock p.m. today, the 18th of August, 2022. Thank you.
The Assembly now stands adjourned to 1 p.m. today, 18th August 2022.
You may sit. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, participants, that was a wonderful session, and that has brought us almost to the end of your time here as youth parliamentarians in the junior category. As of now, the judges will be tallying the scores. And first, let me introduce those judges to you. Our first judge is Miracle Miller. Of course, Miracle Miller is one of our own as well. She is an active volunteer of the Georgetown Starbucks Leos Club, where she enjoys assisting persons. Her love for English language propelled her to the position of Best Graduating Student in the year 2012. English A student, by the way. Not literature, English A. When she completed her high school diploma at Christchurch Secondary School. In 2016 and 2017, Ms. Miller participated in a youth training program hosted by the Department of Youth Empowerment Unit at the Madawini Training Center, and was selected to be one of Guyana's youth ambassadors to the United Nations Youth Assembly held at the UN's headquarters in Manhattan, New York City in 2017. Ms. Miller copped the Best Speaker Award for the Youth Parliament 2018. Today, she holds a Bachelor of Engineering in Applied and Exploration Geology. Ms. Miller holds a firm belief in serving her country, and she is doing it well thus far. Our next judge is a current Member of Parliament, the Honorable Devin Sears. During his formal years of education, he obtained technology certificates in networking, repairs, security, theatrical art, film, a documentary from the Ohio University, technology degrees from Penn Foster, and honors in natural resources managing for sustainable livelihoods from the National Institute of Rural Development. And this was in India, actually. Politically, MP Sears served as the General Secretary for the Youth for Change, the youth arm of the Alliance for Change, chairman of the AFC Region Number 10 Management Committee, and an active National Executive Committee member. In 2016, MP Sears was elected to serve on the Linden municipality as one of the youngest councillors and headed the Communications Committee, which led the modernization of the council's network and reduction of use of paper, and deputized the Administration and Legal Affairs Committee. In 2020, MP Sears was elected to the National Assembly, where he contributes to fight for equality, justice, and development. Outside of politics, he currently chairs the Region Number 10 Tourism Committee, which leads the drive in this emerging sector. Sears is a father of two, a 12-year-old girl and a 4-year-old boy, and believes that the best preparation for tomorrow is doing your best today. And your chief judge for today is Miss Africo Selman. Miss Africo Selman is a former member of Parliament, former member of the National Assembly of Guyana, who holds a bachelor's degree of social sciences, a Bachelor of Social Sciences degree in International Relations from the University of Guyana, and a Master's of Science degree in Project Management from the University of Bedfordshire. She has served as an educator, both as a part-time political science lecturer at the University of Guyana and a grade 6 teacher for approximately 23 years. Ms. Selman currently serves in the capacity of advisor to the Honorable Minister of Education, Dr. Priya Manikchan. Additionally, Ms. Selman presided as one of the judges of the junior category of the Youth Parliament in 2021. Ms. Selman is an avid reader and is passionate about transforming the lives of youth in Guyana. She loves children and is interested in their welfare and development. Those are your 3 judges in this year's 7th Annual Youth Parliament Junior category. Put your hands together for them, please. You read the standing orders. Lovely. At this time, they are still tallying the scores, and I would like to ask anyone in the audience, right, those of you in the audience, to share with us some brief remarks. But what I would like to start with, I do believe that we need to hear from both the teachers who are here and the mentors. So, with that being said, I would ask the teacher to please go to the nearest mic and please share your remarks at this point in time. As you elect which teacher is going to come, we will have one of the other mentors share their remarks for us. And Mr. Gill, Shaquan Gill, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me take the opportunity before I say anything else to allow you to put your parliamentary hands together for yourselves and for the debates that you guys have done over the last 2 days. When we started the mentorship period, I met my mentees at a place where I didn't think that they were ready for these competitions. Over the last few days, they have stepped up, and I must say that I am proud of every single mentee that I would have mentored. Not just that, I am happy, and I have to take this time to personally acknowledge Mr. St. Hill, who did a phenomenal job in his debating. I'm upset with you. We can talk about that later. But I think you guys did a really good job altogether, and I want to encourage you to use this as your foundation, your platform for further growth and development so that we all can work together in building a better Guyana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gill. And we will now have remarks from one of the teachers.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I want to congratulate all the students. Okay. I want to congratulate all the students for a job well done. I think you guys did an excellent job over this period. I know there were sleepless nights, and there were times that you guys went the extra mile. And I think it's just to show that if you work hard, you can achieve much. So it was an excellent opportunity and a great opportunity for us as teachers being here to support you. We say thanks to the Parliamentary Office for having us and giving us this opportunity. For me, it has been an exciting one because of the fact that I got to mix and mingle with teachers from different regions and also students from different regions. So caps off to all of you. Continue to work hard, study hard, and all the best in your future endeavors. God bless you.
Thank you very much, sir. Do we have another mentor?
Hi, everyone. I was an opposition mentor, as I'm sure you all know, because I kind of flaunted it. Today, the debates, yesterday as well, you guys, you brought forth so many different things that I, as a person, I'm an adult, and I would not have thought about some of your positions on certain things. And I'm glad that you got this opportunity to present, to express your opinions, to say, okay, well, this is wrong, this is right. And I'm glad you took you went with your opportunity, ran with it, and you gave it your all. You guys did wonderful. Your presentations were lovely. I remember laughing, smiling, crying, everything. The government, I'm especially upset with you guys, but after today, we're friends. Opposition, you guys did really well. I'm so proud of you. Don't forget ice cream later.
Thank you very much. I was just scrolling on Facebook to check on the comments to see who was saying what. And I'm seeing a few here. I'd just like to quickly share it with you. I'm seeing Lucy Park is saying excellent. Delon Adams is giving claps. She's applauding you. I think that's it, right? Claps? No? Sean Thompson is saying, well done, well done, St. Hill. Well done, St. Hill. Leonie Austin is saying, well done, youths. I'm seeing one here from Rashida Harinarain. Well done, everyone. Also, Chandra Singh Gonzalez is saying, good job, all. I think she resides in New York, so somebody all the way there is actually streaming, checking the live, which is wonderful. I'm so glad to see so many persons are doing that. Shelley Harry Paul is saying, well done, guys. Susanna Rawlings, great job. Even your very own Stefan Gabriel jumped on here. Him and his, I think his neck is still giving him problems. So I guess he's not here today, but he's online. Wonderful. He said, great job, guys. Kevin Bethune is saying, good luck, Reniza. Yes. So we're seeing on the live right now, persons are coming on to congratulate each and every one of you. And like I said, this is a very wonderful opportunity for each and every one of you as participants and as youths to take whatever it is that you learn here over this period, take it into your personal lives, and you try to be a better person, right? Serve, be a servant to Guyana, and be a motivator to other aspiring youths. So give yourself a round of applause. It seems the judges are still tallying the scores, so we will continue checking online to see what persons are saying. All right? But before we do that, yes, but before we allow for any remarks by the judges or anything like that, I would just like to invite the participants from the junior category to share any brief remarks with us. Anything that you would have learned, your experience, over the time being here, anything that you would like to share, please put on your mic and share.
Good day, everyone. I would like to stand here and say this has been a wonderful experience. It's weird to think that all of this work just finished in like 5 minutes of my speech. I am so proud of my opposition members. We've really come a very far way. We had a rocky start, but I would like to think we're sailing smooth right now. Good job, guys. I hope that our friendship wouldn't just end here, but it can continue for as long as possible. To the government, I'm disappointed you didn't vote for emotion. But anyways, it was nice working with you all. Hi, Reginald. Good job on leading your team. Yes, this has been an amazing opportunity, and I'm very thankful for being here. So thank you all.
Honorable Prime Minister.
There should be a rule that when the Prime Minister stands, everybody stands. But anyways, country said it better, Thea. So I just want to thank you all. Well, before I thank the participants, I want to thank the parliamentary staff. Mr. December, Ms. Bethune, Ms. Charles, you guys, we wouldn't have been here without you. All the ushers who ushered us in here today. We wouldn't have been here without any of the parliamentary staff who put together such a complex debate. You know, we say that we have hard nights, like the day before yesterday, when we were staying up drafting speeches for the first debate the following day. So just imagine how longer the parliamentary staff had to stay up to prepare for the next debate. Next, I want to thank our mentors. Again, we wouldn't have been here without you. Mr. Shaquan, Ms. Brittany, I forget your name. You know yourself. So, yeah. And Mr. Kieran and Ms. Ruth. Yeah. Yes. And then I want to thank each and every one of you, all the participants, government, opposition, whatever side you're on. We all came together, we united, and we put some great arguments out there. And I'm super proud of my team. We did it, guys. And the opposition. Yeah, we're proud. We're proud. You put us through some storms. Mr. Saint Hill at the back there. Just so you know, right? Thanks to the division. Yeah. So, thank you to all the teachers too who took time out of their busy schedule to come down here to travel and to see their students flourish. So, thank you everyone. Bye. So what time is lunch?
Just now. Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister. Is there any other participant that would like to say something quickly? Say any brief remarks? In the meantime, you mustered that courage and to come up and say something. We have another mentor that would like to share with us. She wasn't in the chamber at the time, but she is a sprightly young lady, so I will allow her, give her the floor so that she may share with us her brief remarks. Go ahead.
Wonderful, wonderful youth parliamentarians. It goes without saying that we are indeed proud of you all. There isn't much that I can tell you today that you haven't already heard, but I just want to leave something with you. As youths, you're torn between in a world that is divided by hate and dreams. You have so much to lose, so much to gain, so much to fight for, and so much to change. So with that, whatever environment you step into, I want you to be better. Not for yourself, but for everyone around you. Use what you have gathered here today and set it out into the world. You are so much more than you are now. And as you grow older, you will figure that out. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Seems the judges are still tallying the scores, so we have a little bit more time to share maybe a few more remarks from the participants. Come on, be brave.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to say it was honestly a thrill working with each of my members and working not necessarily against, but with you, with the members of government as well. I'm very glad that I was granted this opportunity, and I'm so honored to be in here right now, sitting before all of you actually, because the arguments presented today and yesterday, they really show a very powerful side of your personality. I would have made some friends on the government side and a lot more friends on the opposition side. And I think that's one of the most important parts that I'm going to carry away. It's the experience and the feelings that I went through in this entire experience. I'd like to commend each and every one of you because I know you did an amazing job. And any mistakes or anything, just wipe them out the door because I know that from this we can all learn. Even if we think we were best now, we can get better. And I'd like to inspire each of you to keep going, keep achieving, keep reaching for more and more because youth parliament is not the limit, and we would have seen that throughout our experience here. I am very thankful again to be here, and it was amazing working with each and every one of you. Thank you.
I'd just like to let you know that the Honorable Mansour Nadir, Speaker of the National Assembly, who is watching online. Of course, those of you would have known that he couldn't make it today because he's on his way to another conference, and he has extended a hearty congratulations to each and every one of the participants here today. Give yourself a round of applause. A congratulatory message was also sent by Ms. Charles, who is also accompanying the Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly. And Ms. Charles she's the Parliamentary Executive Officer, and she has extended congratulations to each and every one of you as well. So yes, you are doing well. Well, I just got the notification that the judges have completed the scores. I'm seeing a lot of sweaty palms and sweaty brows. So what I will do, I will invite the judges to share their remarks. Then you will know the scores, So I will begin with the judge, the first judge, Miss Miracle Miller.
Madam Speaker, members of Parliament, distinguished guests, all. A pleasant morning to you. This experience, every time I sit to listen to debates by our present, because we're not our future, I believe that we are our nation's present, and we must think that way, we must act that way, and we must believe that in our hearts. This experience has been nothing short of exceptional, and I hope that you all share these sentiments of mine. The debates today and yesterday were well put over, well structured, and I must commend the bravery of each and every one of you sitting here. There were some cons and there were some pros that I had highlighted, and I will bring those to your attention. When presenting a speech, try not to read too much. Even if you must read, try not to hold your notes in front of you. Try to put your notes away from you and glance and look up and speak. Even if you are nervous, try not to rush your speech. Memorize your speech so that if you realize you're running out of time, there are parts of your speech that you can take out without us even knowing that a part of your speech is missing. Breathe. Pause, and if you must, there is water here, drink a little water to settle yourself. So, yesterday, I noted that a lot of persons in their speech use little referral to Madam Speaker. When we're speaking and we're addressing the floor, we should address the speaker, whether it's Madam Speaker or Mr. Speaker. Kindly note that for future references. You should refrain from using vague quotes such as, according to this news, or according to that news. What we would like to know is when this was said, when it was published, if it's a published article, if it was just on social media, if it was in a print, where did you get your source from? One thing you should also do is stick to the proposed motion and avoid bringing new arguments to the forum. Read your motion, read your resolutions, follow that, and argue in that manner. Use more examples. Refer more to current issues and recent events. Use sound and established references. You need to modulate your voices a little more. When you're stressing a point, let us know that you're stressing a point. When you present a speech in a monotone, it kind of allows the listeners to zone out. You do not want persons to zone out from your argument. You want persons to focus on what you are saying. You want persons to be drawn into your speech so much that if you make a mistake, they don't even recognize. Do not, and this is for the government side. When you are in government, do not highlight your weaknesses without stating what is being done to address those weaknesses. Because all you are doing is shooting yourself in the foot and giving the opposition points to attack you. Even if you have weaknesses, such as, and I will use current things that were mentioned today, potholes in the roads, crime, the dunce thugs, the molly, and everything. Say what your government is doing to address those issues. Do not just throw them out on the floor and leave them. State what you have in your budget to address those issues. State what future plans you have to address those issues. In that way, you will calm your nation, you will calm the opposition, and you will let them know that you are for them and that you have plans for them in the pipeline that you will bring to fruition. For the pros, there were very good examples used by some members. A lot of recent events were used. I particularly liked the event in speaking about the Bartica Regatta. I liked when sources were used, such as the IDB and other sources that we can follow and sources that we can go back to and say, yes, this is true and this is not just a fallacy. Give solutions for your issues that you raise. If you raise examples, give solutions to how you can perfect what you are saying. One thing I noticed also was clear diction and clear articulation from some persons. And I think that would come from when you were settled, when you're calm, and when you're very confident in what you are saying. If you doubt yourself, we also will doubt you. You have to come believing what you are telling us. The minute your voice gets shaky, or the minute you start speaking and it sounds like you're questioning what you're saying, I also will question what you are saying. And also, there was a clear understanding of the motion from some parties. However, I would advise that you read the motion clearly, and even if you cannot address all of the clauses, you can address one and do that very clearly and very thoroughly, leaving no space for doubt. I want to commend you all on this great achievement, and I hope that you don't stop here, but you go on to lead in your communities, lead your friends, lead your family, and take this experience and keep it forever in your memory. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Honorable Devin Sears.
Thank you very much, Mr. December. Uh, Madam Speaker, honorable members of the House, I don't want to say y'all really kicked some butt today. I applaud you for everything that you've done for the 2 days. I'm going to be short. I noticed what I've observed is that some of our members were nervous. And I must commend the opposition, particularly, for cheering their colleague on. And this really helped in delivery because you're nervous, at least your friend is there, your colleague is there to support you. And this is a lesson that we can go through life. We must cheer each other on whenever they're broken or nervous about a situation. Teamwork is very, very important, especially when you're delivering your position, whether it be the opposition or the government. A lot of the nervousness sometimes come from not being sure of your placement. Each one of you in this house deserves to be here. You worked hard for it. And I ain't hear nobody saying yes. Each one of you deserve to be here. And that must be your comfort. I deserve to be here. I have a constituency. I have a school that I represent. I have a family that I represent. I have a country that is backing me. And that should always be your firm foundation when you're going out there and you make a representation on behalf of your people. One of the things that we observed is that when it comes to the basis of your arguments, you're responsible for a ministry. If you're a ministry, you're representing the Ministry of Health, how is it that we're switching all the way to agriculture and sports? Sometimes we have to bring it home to the ministry that we represent. And that is what I recognize that were some of our flaws throughout. The use of the standing order. The purpose of the standing order, as it states, to maintain order in the House. And you can use it to your advantage. You see, if you understand the laws, if you understand the rules, just like going to school, we know that we probably should not wear a whole bunch of jewelry, right? Why we should not wear a whole bunch of jewelry? Well, you probably could get robbed along the way. So therefore, you're not going to wear the jewelry because your life could be affected or hindered in some sort of way. Understand the standing order. I love how, I'm not sure, Mr. Honorable Member Mohammed Bash, right? Yes, there was a point in the debate when the standing order was used to derail him from making his points. But staying focused and hitting the nail on his head, that was key. Don't be distracted by what people are saying or what comes up in Parliament or any day of your life. Do not be distracted. You're going there with one goal, one focus, stick on the straight and narrow path. The other thing is the motions. As the government and the opposition, you can support each other's motion. If the primary purpose of a parliament, be it government or opposition, is to look after the interests of the people. If a motion is good, therefore the government can support it or the opposition can support it. Who benefits at the end of the day? The citizens of Guyana. And I thought the last motion when it comes to sports tourism could have been supported by both parties. not necessarily you have to oppose each other all the time. And finally, I must say to you that I'm extremely proud. We have the honorable member, Dr. Jennifer Westford, in the House here, and she represents the government, I represent the opposition. But I can say one thing, that we're extremely, extremely proud of you, and we're comfortable with one fact, that Guyana is in good hands. And rest assured that as long as you continue to push, you will become ministers of health, ministers of agriculture, and the country will prosper from now on. So thank you very much, and I applaud you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sears. To our Chief Judge, Ms. Africa Selman.
Thank you, Mr. December. Fellow judges, Madam Speaker, members of Parliament, Dr. Jennifer Westford and Dr. Tandika Smith, who are here with us. We want to thank them for taking time out of their busy schedule to be here. Youth parliamentarians, all. It is indeed a privilege to adjudicate the debates of the youth parliamentarians. And I wish to commend the Speaker of the National Assembly, Mr. Mansour Nadir, and staff for continuing and ensuring that we have the 7th Annual Youth Parliament. I think we should congratulate and commend them, youth parliamentarians. Permit me also to commend both the government and opposition youth parliamentarians for their outstanding compliance with the standing orders. I sincerely hope that the current members of this National Assembly are watching these debates because they're being streamed live, and that they can learn how to behave in these chambers. I want you, youth parliamentarians, to applaud yourself for outstanding behavior. Whilst I am in the commending mode, I wish to commend some members for establishing the correlation between the topic and their supporting arguments. Some of you deviated a bit, and we can relate to that, and we understand why. But for future reference, I wish to encourage you, the government as well as the opposition members, to pay attention and focus on his or her specific portfolio or area of responsibility, and address the issues that are relevant to that portfolio. For example, the Minister of Amerindian Affairs should focus on issues specific to the indigenous people or to indigenous communities. If you are the Minister of Foreign Affairs, you focus on the issues that are relevant to your portfolio, your responsibility, your ministry. Additionally, I wish to point out that some of you adumbrated, put out relevant points in relation to all three of the motions that we were tasked with adjudicating. But because you felt that you had to get in so much, you rushed and you tried to put in too many points, which caused you to lose the essence. You know, sometimes if mommy put too much sugar, too much salt in the food, the chicken may be really, really good, right? But because it's salty, we won't enjoy it any longer. And so what I would say to you, that it's important that you spend some time practicing. You rehearse, as I think the fellow judge Miracle said, and so you're better able to manage your time. So not only for debates, but for other assignments in life, it's important that we practice good time management. For example, what I noticed too is that at times we weren't clear whether you were opposing or supporting the motion, and that would be the opposition, for example. And so I would urge you, you can say in the future, I rise to support or oppose the motion on the consideration, and thereby everyone would know that you're opposing or supporting, because the opposition members can oppose, they can support, or they can abstain from a motion based on your conscience. You're also urged to provide alternative programs, plans, policies. You should not oppose unless you have a better solution that is working or that has worked in other countries, and not just other countries, but countries that share similar objective conditions, or countries that fall within our jurisprudence. And so we know that what programs, policies these countries are employing, they would be applicable to our given situation here in Guyana. So you don't want just to use examples or statistic wisely, but we use things that are relevant to Guyana. And those would help to strengthen or solidify your arguments. All in all, youth parliamentarians, government and opposition, you've done exceedingly well. And I wish to take the opportunity at this time to wish you all the best in your future endeavors. I know that and I hope that some of you would go on to become national parliamentarians, national leaders, and that you would not change, that you would maintain the same humility that you demonstrated in this house this morning, the same camaraderie, and you would not at any point inculcate hostility, because at the end of the day, as my fellow judge said, it's all about one Guyana. We're representing the people of Guyana, whether we're in opposition or we're in government. We're not here to represent ourselves, but we're here to represent Guyanese. And that's my hope for the future, and my hope for you, future leaders of Guyana. At this time, permit me to announce the winners. There are no losers here today. In debates, we never have losers. So we have unanimously agreed that motion 1, which reads, climate change in Guyana, was won by the government. I want you to applaud. Motion 2, psychological evaluation for students. That motion was won by the opposition. Let's all celebrate. Government can applaud too, because as I said, no losers, right? No losers. Motion 3, development of sports to promote sports tourism in Guyana. That motion was won by the government. Congratulations once again. You've all done well today. Right, so now that I've gotten your attention again, we're still celebrating each other. And so if I win, my friend Dr. Westford wins, right? And so if you win, your friend on the other side or on the same side is also the winner. So it gives me great pleasure to announce that the best speaker on the government side is the Honorable Terry Ann Wright. Could you stand to be recognized?
Thank you.
Well done. The best speaker on the side of the opposition, we felt, is the Honorable Aruni Sealy.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Congratulations, everyone.
Well, there you have it. Do me a favor. Look to the person to your right. And look to the person to your left. And I'm speaking to the participants especially. And I want you to repeat after me. I am a youth parliamentarian. I did it. Me. No, not me, you. Just- So this brings us to the end of this category, for the 7th Annual Youth Parliament. I would like to urge the youth parliamentarians in the junior category to utilize the knowledge garnered during this period to benefit aspiring youths like yourself, who, of course, may one day want to be right where you are. So I urge you to go back and be a role model. A big thank you to the ministers of government and the members of parliament who took the time to mentor the participants over this period. Thank you for dedicating your time, of course, to impart your knowledge and experiences during our virtual or physical sessions. I am sure it was received well by each and every one of you. Thank you to the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Honorable Mansour Nadir, for his guidance and patience in overseeing the success of this category of the 7th Annual Youth Parliament. Thank you to Ms. Charles, the Parliamentary Executive Officer, members of the Planning Committee, and staff of the Parliament Office for your efforts in ensuring the successful execution of this year's event. And with that, I would like to say adieu. Give yourselves a round of applause. To our online viewers, thank you very much for being there and for sharing with us your comments. Thank you for those who called me personally to extend congratulatory messages to the participants, and also if they noticed anything that needed improvement, thank you very much for sharing that with us. Every year we aim to get bigger and better.